Good afternoon, everyone. The Sacramento City Council will please come to order. Would the clerk please call the roll so that we might establish a quorum?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby.
Here.
Councilmember Warren. I expect Councilmember Warren momentarily. Vice Mayor Harris.
Here.
Councilmember Hanson.
Here, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Chenier.
Here.
Councilmember Guerra.
Here.
Councilmember Jennings. Councilmember Jennings will be absent this evening. Councilmember Carr. I do expect Councilmember Carr this evening, and Mayor Steinberg.
I am here. Thank you very much. In the chambers with the city clerk and city manager. Would everyone who can please rise? I'd ask Councilmember Hanson, Steve Hanson, to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. Sorry, maybe you caught me off guard. One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not my best pledge, but thank you.
That's all right. You know what? We'll give you a B+.
Keeping me on my toes, so to speak.
Exactly. Members, we begin tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby asked to make a presentation that is not on the calendar, but I do think given the anniversary that what today represents, I think it is appropriate without objection. Ms. Ashby?
Thank you, Mayor. As some of you know, this is the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, so granting women the right to vote, which is important, and particularly important this year as we have the first female vice president of a Democratic Party, also from the great state of California, on a ticket here in November. Women have made great gains in those 100 years, although in my humble opinion, not enough. But I do have a resolution here to celebrate the centennial of the 19th Amendment of the United States. And just to hold it up for you guys, you're all on there, you've all signed it. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for helping me put this together, and really all of the women in leadership, the Women and Girls Advancement Coalition, and all of those who help us all year long, particularly me, and who reminded me that this would be an important moment. I know we're not really doing resolutions over Zoom, but I thank the mayor and my colleagues for making an exception maybe for this one. It's important, and so I'd like to just read it quickly. Whereas the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution granting women the right to vote occurs in 2020. And Sacramento is the capital city of California, a state that advanced the national women's suffrage movement by granting the right to vote for California women in 1911. And the 19th Amendment enfranchised millions of women. It was only the beginning of a long, arduous fight to remove barriers inextricably tied to the legacies of racial and class subjugation to voting for all citizens. And since the ratification of the 19th Amendment, work continues to advance the equality of women in all political, social, economic, and cultural aspects of life in the United States of America, including shared leadership. And therefore, it is resolved by this council that we would acknowledge that this is the 100-year mark for women to have the right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing this forward. It's hard to believe that there was a time in our history where women were not allowed to vote. It is amazing that it ever was that way. The world is changing in many, many ways for the better. And let's keep advancing. Thank you so much for bringing this forward. Let's move to the consent calendar. Are there any items that the members would like to discuss or take off from the consent calendar?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the consent calendar, and when appropriate, I'll discuss item 14.
Mayor, I had asked the clerk to remove item 10 for a separate presentation.
Do you need a separate vote, or would you just like a separate presentation, Councilmember Hanson?
A separate vote. I just would like to do it separate from the consent calendar. So
We'll pull item 10 from the consent
Item
calendar.
10 is pulled from the consent calendar. Okay, the rest of the consent calendar has been moved and seconded.
Was that second by Vice Mayor Harris?
No, actually, I have a comment on number 14 before we vote, hopefully.
Thank you, and I have 2 callers in the queue. Mayor Steinberg, shall we take the callers now?
Yeah, let's take the callers.
Thank you. May I have my first caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, I'm calling about item number 3. I live in District 8. I'm not going to say my name out of fear for retaliation from the corrupt cops and sheriffs in this city. I find it disgusting that you think that more money of our budget in this time of true crisis should go to the overbloated pigs that are the sheriff's office. They shot a man in the back 28 times as he ran away. And they came back and said that there was nothing wrong with that conduct. It's quite frankly the most disturbing human rights violation that there has been in Sacramento City caused by the sheriff's department. And now it's actually quite funny that you all call it an anti-terrorism measure, because the sheriff's department are the true terrorists. There's literally people out there amid a global crisis, a global pandemic, a rising heat wave and fires. Our unhoused folks are out there on the streets, and we're not going to help them with that money. We're going to give it back to you, the sheriffs, again, with your corrupt leader, Scott Jones, who openly mocks and aggresses against BLM and people of color on his Facebook page. On his public Facebook page, he posts that stuff. And we're just going to give him more money. Why don't you listen to what the people need? There's so many people in the city who could use the money right now. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. And our next caller is on item 10, so we'll wait for that. So Mayor
Second
Steinberg-
the consent calendar if you need a second, Mayor.
Yes, I do.
Okay, there is a second on the consent calendar with the exception of item 10. Let's call the roll on the consent calendar, please.
Thank you.
I have comments on number 14, please.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank Maria Gunnigal and United Way for their effort to reach for digital equity. It's my opinion that this is one of the most important pieces of our COVID response. There are, as the United Way conducts its inquiry into how many blacked out areas we have for Wi-Fi around the city, it occurs to me that since there is CARES Act money remaining, and a fair amount of it, that we should probably increase the budget for this particular project. I know certainly in my own district at the greenhouse in the Gardenland area, there's a tremendous complex there that has absolutely no Wi-Fi. And this is replicated all throughout the city. Imagine our jobs if we did not have access to devices and Wi-Fi. We couldn't conduct the business of the city. Think about that on the personal level, where you can not conduct your own family business. You can't get your kids educated. Elders get isolated. I think this is a very important piece, and I think that moving forward, when we next deliberate bringing more money to COVID response, that we should pay particular attention to this particular project. I think it's extremely valuable. So thank you, Maria, and thank you, United Way, for getting this underway.
Mayor, if I could, before you take the vote,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris or Vice Mayor Harris, my office has been running point on this one with Maria and the IT unit, and now with the United Way. And I agree with you. This is, I think, really important work. And I'm glad that you mentioned that about the greenhouse. I didn't know that, but I will make sure that that in particular is looked at too. And if there's any other areas, Karina, who I'm sure is listening, will make sure that as they move forward, that those are areas that are included in the report back, so we know exactly what they need. And Councilmember Carr, included in this part with United Way is also some training for folks who need help that are first time internet users, which I know is something you asked for as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Jagera, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. What I'd like also, again, thank Maria McGonnell and the staff for this proposal. I think it's, again, very essential. I'd also like if our staff, I know there's been conversations with our different school districts. One of the biggest challenges has been how to help parents, and I've heard directly from parents about managing the internet. There is a model that's been used for parents called the Promotoras model. And I think there's a way to do this, or parent advocate model to help them. And I think if our city staff could, as we look at this next phase and expanding, many of the school districts have provided now hardware, and if we got them Wi-Fi, but the big challenge is helping them about not only how to use it, but what are the resources. And so if we can work with our the parent advocates on this promotora model, I think it would be very helpful. So I do want to thank Mario Lara and his team for starting those conversations, but I think that second wave of education would be helpful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, let's call the roll, please, on the consent calendar.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. Okay, let's take
And
item.
Mayor Steinberg, can I ask a question? If I may. So I didn't want to interrupt the vote because I think it's important to continue moving on. If there are other projects that folks are working on, I don't know, and this is kind of maybe a Howard question or a Michael Jasso question, kind of drop dead date of how to do that for when we bring these back. We're doing a lot of this on consent, which is fine. I know we need to move all of this. But for example, Melissa Cerrone, who is our Arts Commission person, and SCOE have been working on a project or a proposal around youth mental health and the arts, which kind of does creative economy and also youth. They'll have that. There's some issues that are being worked out with SCOE. Where does that go at this point? I don't know who answers that question.
I think Mike's on the line. He could answer that question.
Good evening, council members and Councilmember Chenier. So yes, I would just direct that that to our office. We have, as you know, received unsolicited proposals as well as proposals through the formal mechanisms of the NOFA that we recently released for workforce development programs. So, and we can review it in that context. So I think we're aware of that program. We've had some discussion, but any information or connecting with our staff would be appreciated.
Yeah, I think there's an updated proposal. There's some issues that they're trying to work through with some of the employee groups of some of the organizations, but it's a great partnership between SCOE and the city and something I hope we could move forward. So we'll get that to you this week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item 15, please. Item 10, excuse me. Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks, Mayor. I believe the staff have a very brief presentation, and then, as I promised, I would keep it brief. But our staff on? If not, I will.
It looks like they're.
This is Raymond Costantino, Park Planning Manager with the City of Sacramento, YIPD. I just have a brief presentation that I don't have anything formal. This item is to name Natomas Oaks Park after former council member Ray and his wife Judy Trethewey. It would be named Ray and Judy Trethewey Oak Preserve. And as we all know, Ray Trethewey has done great work at the city of in the city of Sacramento as a whole, and he's the executive director of the Tree Foundation and a strong advocate for the city's tree canopy. And the Parks Department, or YPSI, is really excited about naming Natomas Oaks after Ray and Judy. And I know that we have several members of the community who wanted to share some words about this honoring.
Thank you, Raymond. Mayor, I might just make a few comments and we'll take the public. And I believe Ray is on to speak last. Is that okay? So a lot of this I didn't know in full detail until recently, but the Natomas Oaks Park was originally preserved, but as a smaller form. And then during Ray's time on the council, he advocated for additional acreage to be preserved as open space. But long before that, in 1978, and I believe former Mayor Fargo might be calling in tonight to talk about some of this, Ray and Judy moved to South Natomas, and they championed the need for parks, open space, and healthy neighborhoods. They helped co-found the South Natomas Community Association. They actually published a newspaper for quite a while, the Natomas News, and then Judy took over after Ray went to the Tree Foundation to continue publishing the Natomas Journal. Ray was one of the founding board members, along with Judy, I believe, as the Tree Foundation, and became its first staff member not long after its founding in 1982. Many of you know former council member Trethewey, probably less for all the work he did on the council, but for the fact that he has continued to be one of the most important and prominent advocates for our urban tree canopy, our urban forest, and for continuing to ensure that disadvantaged communities have the tree cover they need, which we know palpably right now is hard in this heat wave because those disadvantaged communities tend to have a lot less tree canopy. But also for projects like the Hanami line at Matsui Park, which is a project with a variety of communities, but particularly the Japanese American community and the Japanese consulate, to bring a cherry tree park to the riverfront right next to the Powerhouse Science Center. So I can't think of anything better than naming this oak preserve in honor of Ray and Judy Trethewey for all of their contributions to the city. And it's really a special day to have this moment. So I'll let the clerk turn it over to the public commenters, and then I know Ray is on to speak last.
Let us hear from the public commenters, please.
Thank you. May I have my first phone caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening. My name is Kaylin Wright. I am the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Sacramento Tree Foundation. Our board wholeheartedly supports renaming this park after Ray and Judy Trethewey. This honor could not be more appropriate. Together, Judy and Ray have devoted their lives to tirelessly promoting trees, their South Natomas community, and the city of Sacramento. 38 years ago, Ray and several other prominent community members helped found the Sacramento Tree Foundation. The Tree Foundation has flourished in our city of trees. It grows thriving communities through its stewardship of our urban forest, especially in historically underserved communities. Ray initially served on the Sacramento Tree Foundation Board of Directors and is its first employee. For the last 30 years or more, he has been the Tree Foundation's executive director. Judy is his partner in championing trees and in community service. So naming a nature preserve with her heritage and after Ray and Judy is especially appropriate. In the 1980s, Judy published the Natomas News, a monthly newsletter that connected all members of the South Natomas community. The Natomas Park, in particular, holds special significance for Ray and Judy. The park is located near their home, They and their South Natomas community successfully advocated for the city of Sacramento to acquire this heritage oak grove and designated it as a nature preserve. Ray and Judy's daughter had their wedding there in 2005, and Judy holds silent meditation retreats and leads forest bathing walks in this park for community members. The Sacramento Tree Foundation Board of Directors strongly supports renaming the Natomas Oaks Park as the Ray and Judy Trethewey Oak Preserve. Thank you for giving us time to speak this evening in this important renaming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller, please. And this is our final caller on this item. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and council members and tree huggers in the audience. This is Heather Fargo calling you to speak in strong support for the renaming of the Natomas Oak Grove for Ray and Judy Trethewey. Thank you, Councilmember Hanson, for bringing this forward. This is very important step that you're taking here, and I wish that you had the map that was shown at the Park and Recreation Commission that showed the entire extent of the Garden Highway oak groves that are actually on both sides of the Natomas Oak Grove. And Ray and I were involved in trying to preserve all of them, as many as we could, in our early days of activism in the early 90s, I guess it would be, or actually early 80s. Anyway, we are really pleased as a community that we would have our own Ray and Judy get this honor. And also, I am speaking on behalf of all of the current and former staff members of the Sacramento Tree Foundation, who are also really excited that Ray in particular is being recognized for this honor after his many years of leading the Sacramento Tree Foundation. So this is a really positive thing you're doing tonight. I really want to thank you and congratulate Ray and Judy for this great honor. Thanks to city staff and everyone who worked on bringing this forward. And I'm assuming it's going to be everyone on board. But thank you very much for your support. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Fargo. Is there anyone else? I just want to add my voice of support and congratulations. What a legacy, Ray and Judy. You have done so much for our community to make us the proud designee as the city of trees, as well as the farm to fork capital of the country. And for me personally, it's good to know that you have an additional legacy beyond having the only clay tennis court in the city of Sacramento. Congratulations to both of you.
Mr. Mayor, can I have the clerk turn Ray's video and sound on? He wanted to join us for just a moment to thank us.
Please, Ray.
Good evening. Am I heard?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Hanson and your colleagues and Mayor. Just a few brief remarks on this, in some ways, unsettling honor that Councilman Hanson has worked hard to bestow on us. You know, this grove, they settled and nurtured the first Californians. This grove is twice the age of the statehood of California. And when the first settlers came to California and built a home and farmed their land, they saw the value or the magic, or they revered this grove. And at one point, up and down the rivers and creeks of the Central Valley, there were thousands of acres. And as a city of trees, we preserved this particular grove, this remnant of those thousands of acres, with great foresight. I really believe that this oak preserve, from a naturalist point of view, is the crown jewel of parks for the city of trees. So again, Judy and I are quite humbled. I can share with you that with our community service, and my public service, we never thought something like this would be bestowed upon us. And it's a grand and it's a magical place. And we want to, in anticipation of your consideration, we want to thank you. I also would be remiss in not recognizing Councilmember Ashby's comments on the 19th Amendment. At the Park Commission, now we need to find out if this is true. It was stated by one of the commissioners that this would be the second park in the city of Sacramento named after a woman. You know, there's over 450 parks in the city of Sacramento. So, as part of the celebration of the 19th Amendment, let's name a few more. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. And I'll make a motion that we approve the item, Mayor.
Before we take that vote, Mayor, I can't let Councilmember Trethway get off without me mentioning him. We have such a special friendship that we formed over the past 10 years. The main, and I think one of the most important things I learned when I came into office was Ray said to me, listen, it's like a relay race and we each run our part and it's your turn now. And I've thought about that statement so many times because I get a ton of credit for things that happen in Natomas, but almost nothing was started by me. I just did the piece that was in front of me during the period of time that I was the council member. I had a canvas set for me by Heather Fargo or by Ray Trethaway that allowed me the opportunity to succeed. And so I really think that he is an important figure in our city right now, currently, and for the years that he's dedicated previously. One of the first things he did was help me do a tree line in the North Natomas Regional Park too. And I'm really proud of that tree line, and I'm proud of my friendship and relationship with him and Mayor Fargo's, and the three of us, and our sort of reputation for fighting for Natomas. And so this is a wonderful honor. Thanks, Steve, for bringing it forward. And I understand that it was Parks Commission driven as well. So that's also fantastic that people in this city that love and care about the parks recognize a person like Councilmember Trethaway, who's given so much to all of us. So I am honored to support your motion tonight, Councilmember Hanson.
All that, and Ray is a heck of a nice guy.
That counts for a lot. You better believe it. Please call the roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. Very good. That is unanimous. Congratulations to Ray and Judy, and thank you, Councilmember Hanson, for bringing this forward. This is a great thing. Let us move on to item 15, please. Who is presenting on item 15?
Good evening, Mayor Steinberg, members of the City Council. My name is Sini Makasini with the Finance Department. The item before you is the public hearing for the renewal of the Stockton Boulevard Property and Business Improvement District, which at this time staff recommends to open the public hearing. Upon the close of the public hearing, the City Clerk's office, along with city staff, will count ballots and report back to Council as a consent item on August 25th with the ballot tabulation. Thank you.
And I'll open and close the public hearing and move the item.
Second.
Councilmember Guerra has a comment. Go ahead.
Oh, no, Jay, Councilmember Chenier already made the motion. I'll second the motion.
And I have one caller on this item.
Okay, there's one caller.
Thank you. May I have our public comment caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, Mayor Steinberg and City Council. I am calling in today to oppose item 15, the Stockton Boulevard Partnership expansion. The Business Improvement District lobbies against the provision of services within our boundaries, including housing services. It lobbies for the removal of people experiencing homelessness, and it hires security and contract with police to ensure this displacement. We don't need this in Sacramento. We don't need an expansion. So I'm calling to oppose this. And before I yield my time, I just want to really emphasize my disappointment. A nice resident earlier called in regards to item number 3 on the consent calendar, expressing so much emotion regarding the sheriff, and you all completely dismissed it, which is really, really rude, as that person was so emotional and distraught and telling you that terrorism in our community is our police, and you didn't listen. You didn't even acknowledge it. You just seconded the consent calendar instead of addressing that person's feelings, and that is not what leadership is. So please just be mindful and be responsive to people that call in, because we wait hours sometimes to talk to you, and it takes a lot of courage to call you. So again, please be mindful, and I oppose item 15. I yield my time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Murray, I have no more speakers.
Okay, item has been moved and seconded. Let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Yes, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Let's move to item 16, please.
Mr. Mayor, before we do, could we have the city attorney read the rules for public comment?
Why is that, sir?
Well, because the last caller obviously thought that we did not respond to her concern that was raised. And I think some people don't understand that because items are not on the agenda, that we cannot respond, we cannot carry on a conversation. It's their time to address us, not our time to respond to them.
Clarify that for the public, if you would, please, Madam City Attorney.
Yes, Councilmember, in response to Councilmember Carr's request, and it is written on the agenda materials, when the public calls in, they are providing information to the council for their consideration. And if it's not on the agenda, the council is actually prohibited by the Brown Act to enter into any discussions about that matter. And it is informational purposes for the council to take into consideration.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney.
Thank you for that's important clarification. Let's move to item 16, please.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Sparky Harris with your Public Works Department. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got a short presentation. Hopefully everybody can see the streetcar up on the screen now. The item before you has to do with changes to an approved agreement with the Riverfront Joint Powers Authority and the City of West Sacramento to fund design, engineering, construction, and vehicles for the streetcar project. This agreement committed the City of Sacramento to contribute $300,000. The primary action requested tonight is to reduce that commitment to $149,000. This project was first pursued to improve mobility in the Central City and to enhance our connection to the City of West Sacramento. It is also, but it also had substantial public and private economic benefits. So what happened? In early 2019, construction bids for the project came in significantly higher than budgeted. The special tax district that was approved for the property owners was challenged in court. The case was settled and the district was dissolved. State funding that Regional Transit contributed to the project was rescinded in order to meet expenditure deadlines. And for all of these reasons, the project team huddled for several months to develop an alternative that could be built within budget and that would still connect the two cities and that would remain eligible for the federal appropriation. The revised project proposed by the team is shown on the right. In order to stay within the existing budget, the original alignment was substantially reduced from 4.4 miles to 1.1. This revised project will cost nearly $80 million less to build and $3 million less to run annually. The revised project will be constructed, owned, operated, and maintained by Sacramento Regional Transit, bringing into question the continued need for the Joint Powers Authority. So how was the money spent? Prior council actions approved nearly $9.1 million for the streetcar project as originally envisioned. To date, just over $8.9 million of that budget has been expended through interagency agreements as well as internal expenditures necessary to advance the project. The list on the left summarizes the tasks that have been funded. So moving forward, in order to advance the project for federal grant consideration, key elements of the original plan must be revised and updated. The existing agreement with the Joint Powers Authority in West Sacramento would be the first source of funding for this additional work. Regional Transit has estimated that an additional $560,000 would be needed on top of that agreement to get all the way to a grant award. The city of Sacramento has $149,000 unexpended balance from the sources previously approved in council actions. Rather than find new funds, staff's recommendation is to commit that $149,000 balance as the city of Sacramento's final contribution to the project, considering the significant reduction in the scope of the project. Staff's recommendation is also to amend the project description in the existing agreement to reflect the revised project and to extend the expiration date of the agreement to the end of the fiscal year. Finally, staff recommends that the continued need for the River Point Joint Powers Authority be evaluated, considering that the proposed system would be owned and operated solely by Regional Transit. That concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
But I do know we have one item of public testimony, and then we've got Vice Mayor Harris, Councilmember Hanson, and I'm going to weigh in on this as well, maybe other members. Go ahead with the caller, please.
Yes, may I have my caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Sparky's talking now.
Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council. Please turn down the audio on the device you're watching the meeting. It's your turn to address the council.
I apologize. I was watching Metro 14 and I see there's a delay. This is Stephen Barrasso, the Transportation Chair for ION Sacramento. And I urge you to let the interagency and cost reimbursement agreement expire on August 31st and dissolve the JPA moving forward. As you know, the Prop 1A funds were reprogrammed for the light rail modernization project with RT. It's a vitally important project where the light rail cars are past their 30-year service life and they need to be replaced. By dissolving this JPA, it would free up even more funds to advance that project, which is really vitally important to the region. There is mention in this item that RT intends to replace this funding with future Measure A, but as you know, the Sacramento Transportation Authority has canceled plans to put that on the ballot, and there's no future plan at this time for a transportation measure. Let's see. So again, I urge you to dissolve the JPA. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no more callers.
Okay, thank you for calling in. Let's start with Vice Mayor Harris, and then we'll turn it over to Councilmember Hanson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Steinberg. So as the council may recall, Councilmember Hanson and myself have been members of the JPA, the Riverfront Streetcar JPA, since its inception, so about 4 years. We worked hard on this project. It was not an easy thing to move forward. We were doing pretty well with the city of West Sacramento complicated deal to work. The JPA was actually going to be the owner and operator of the 4.4-mile project that was discussed by Sparky briefly. But the bids came back excessively high, and the ability to build the project was just out of reach. I'd like the council to understand that the JPA has not convened ever since the bid opening. The JPA has never considered an alternate project. This has been basically staff driven. And in fact, in the staff report, I'd like to read a little bit. It said on March 20, 2019, the JPA issued a stop notice to RT consultants and staff to cease work on the project. In the intervening period from then till now, RT, the cities, the JPA, and SACOG have worked with the FDA to determine the path forward to use the appropriated federal funds, that's the 50 million small start money, with local match to complete a 1.1-mile portion of the project within the available budget that would be owned, operated, and maintained by RT. So the problem with this picture is that that was a staff-driven decision. It was never brought up at the JPA. It has not been brought back to this council for a decision. It has not been brought before the RT board. There is an assumption here that the RT organization would now own and operate what they call the connector project, or the 1.1-mile version of the streetcar. Originally, the streetcar was conceived as an economic development tool for the city of Sacramento to connect the Golden One Center with the Convention Center, to do a loop around the essential area of commerce on K Street, to get to the Sacramento Valley Station, and then ultimately to connect the two cities along 3rd Street and across the Tower Bridge and terminate. Originally, it was going to terminate around then Rayleigh Field. And then as the project morphed over time, it grew a little bit on the West Sacramento side. So it went down by the riverfront and then eventually to City Hall, which gave it, I think, some real economic benefits on both sides of the river. The connector project, as envisioned by staff, in my opinion, yields no benefits at all for the city of Sacramento. There are benefits for the city of West Sacramento, but essentially what we get on our side is an encumbrance of 3rd Street and the Tower Bridge without the economic development benefits. In the initial studies of the potential ridership on this line, the numbers come in outstandingly low. It's $130 million to build 1.1 miles of track. And again, this was never driven by electeds and by policy. The idea was to try to preserve the federal money, the Small Starts Grant, which I understand the necessity of it. You know, for the Congresswoman to be able to capture this money was a tremendous effort on her part. And of course, we all appreciate her efforts across the board, from flood control to transportation funding and everything she does for the region. Nonetheless, this is, in my opinion, not a good project for the city of Sacramento. And I could bring staff up. I talked to them at length. I talked to Sparky and Ryan Moore and asked them if they perceived any benefits to the city of Sacramento, and they agreed with me that they did not. So it becomes a matter of, do we allocate this $149,000 to the project, move forward some engineering, and take it to the FDA just to let them decide whether or not this is truly a streetcar project? It actually isn't. It's a very small light rail line. It wouldn't use the streetcar entities or the actual streetcar cars. It would use low floor light rail vehicles. So it's a light rail connection between the two cities, and it can be argued that there are benefits from that, but we have many transportation needs in the city of Sacramento, and this connector project is the least amongst them. I argued previously that double tracking the Green Line is where we should go. The point is this, that the RT board has not even entertained this idea, and yet staff is proposing that RT will own and operate this short line. Very, very likely, in my opinion, that it would be a money-losing proposition for RT and one that they can scarcely afford to take on at this time when RT is under great financial stress and we don't have the opportunity of Measure A, the STA bill, to bolster the fortunes of RT and make our transportation system much more viable. If, in fact, RT did come into a windfall, this is not a project that myself as an RT board member would favor in that situation. So that being said, I feel that this process has not been transparent. It hasn't been discussed really in the newspaper or anywhere other than by staff. I find that very problematic. This is a big and expensive project, and it has to be considered carefully, not only in terms of the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, but as we evaluate our future transportation needs, is 1.1 mile of hard track really the right option? Early on, we did discuss rubber tire vehicles to affect the same transportation needs. And those discussions were had, but not in public. This council certainly never discussed the possibility of changing completely from our original streetcar proposal to what's been very briefly presented by staff tonight. I mean, this is the first time you've heard it, and it's really not much of a project. So my motion tonight will be to, in terms of the staff recommendation, to take number 1, which is executing the amended agreement and just denying that staff recommendation. As for number 2, I think it is time to dissolve the JPA, and I would suggest that we get with the city of West Sacramento and work with them to dissolve the JPA because it's outlived its usefulness. The Joint Powers Authority will not any longer own and operate a streetcar project. It is, for all intents and purposes, done. The bids were too high. There's no way to fund it. And it can be argued whether or not it is actually needed at this point in time as a transportation project that we would adopt. It will, of necessity, go back to the RT Board of Directors, which it should. In fact, it should have happened about a year ago before money was expended to move forward with more engineering to further the connector project. Because if RT was destined to be the owner and operator, the RT board should have been the first body to approve this. But one more point I'd like to make. If this did move forward, if the council tonight votes to move the 149,000, and let's say the engineering is done by HDR, let's say the FTA agrees that this is a streetcar project, that they are willing to use the Small Starts grant for the connector project. The fact of the money is not there to build it. There is not $130 million on the table, ready to go to build this line. There's the $50 million of Small Starts money. There's $30 million of TIRSIP money. The city of West Sacramento has, I assume they still have it, $25 million, and it's a $130 million project. At some point, they will be coming to the city of Sacramento to ask for more money to build this connector project. Not only do we not have it, and will we likely not have it for some time as we come out of the financial stress of the COVID problem, but actually allocating this money tonight in a way indicates tacit approval of the city council that we are accepting the new connector project. But it requires a lot more discussion by this body before I think we could realistically say, yes, it's a go. So that is my motion, Mr. Mayor. And I do hope that this goes soon to the RT board for consideration and that the JPA is dissolved. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm sorry, was there a motion?
Yes, that was my motion. My motion was to take staff recommendation, discard number 1, to not move forward with executing the amended and restated interagency and cost reimbursement agreement, to discard that, to not participate. And on number two, to work with the city of West Sacramento to reevaluate and actually dissolve the JPA because it has outlived its usefulness.
Okay, is there a second on the motion? Okay, let's turn it over to Councilman Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor. I truly appreciate the comments of my colleague Jeff, and this one is complicated. I'll just remind the council that this project in various forms has been under consideration for probably around 10 years. And at the point when I joined the council, the city had been opposed to the project, and we worked quite hard to try to create a project that could get the buy-in of the city and the public, which was originally had a loop through Midtown, as well as some other features on the other side of the river. Several unsuccessful efforts to have the property owners contribute to the project. I think were significant setbacks, as Sparky mentioned. And by the way, Sparky deserves our gratitude. He has been a faithful project planner on this for a very long time. And I know, just like me, he's put a lot of heart and soul into it. So this conversation's more painful probably for him and I than for many of you. But when the project bids came in almost 100 million over, we were stuck. And right before the 2016 election, we had tried to make a project that was acceptable to the administration. A lot changed, as many of you know, when the new administration came in 2017. And that bid package was a major setback. But the original reason we created the JPA and wanted the cities to own it is because the cities could ask the utilities to relocate at their own cost. The transit agency did not have that capability under the law. And so we saved in the old project plan a significant amount of money. I think it was somewhere in the $14 to $20 million range from being able to ask the utilities to relocate. And most of those were in the J Street alignment east of 12th Street. So there was a logical reason at that point for city ownership. And I think that has gone as we've shifted to try to see if there's an opportunity to use the federal appropriation, the $100 million, and go through the FTA process, which is very, very difficult. In the last, 5 or 6 months, obviously with the COVID pandemic, a lot of our plans have shifted dramatically. I am currently the chair of the Regional Transit Board of Directors. I know Councilmember Chenier is the past chair. Councilmember Harris is on there, as well as Councilmember Jennings, who isn't with us tonight. And our agency, like many transit agencies, has been faced with enormous challenges. Thankfully, we did work over the past 6 years to reshape the agency to make it more fiscally sound. And so the agency had embarked on car replacement, station modification. We have to replace our buses with electric buses under a state mandate. And when we have a significant number of projects in the hopper, as well as the green line to the airport, the blue line extension south, and some of the double tracking projects, many of those right now are on the back burner because not only did we lose our local match, which is usually required for federal funding, but also a lot of the agency is just in survival mode. We have lost a very substantial amount of riders, and in the current environment where the current Measure A supplemental was postponed, state tax receipts to fund these projects look to be far less substantial, and so projects are going to get far less funding, as well as some of the other things that Councilmember Harris talked about. This is extremely tough. I do think, though, on the flip side of that coin, that there is a grand vision to our region, and I do believe in regionalism. We are not just the city of Sacramento. We are in the county of Sacramento. We're in the 6-county region, and through the mayor's leadership, we've had some very successful projects like the express bus service using Electrify America's grant funds to connect Davis and the Med Center. And we've been working very constructively with YOLO Bus on that project, as well as an airport connection. We have successfully, until the COVID pandemic shut it down, created a Davis, West Sacramento, and City of Sacramento bike share program. And I do think, based on the data from those, that there is a huge demand for connectivity to the West. And the hard thing is that this project right now doesn't appear to have a lifeline without a local match and with some of the other obstacles that were discussed. So what I hope we can do tonight, and I know Councilmember Harris did not receive a second, is maybe paint a vision for what this project could be, which is the beginning of an extension that was envisioned when the Sacramento Regional Transit District was created, which allows it to think about providing service all the way to Davis, and thinking about this as potentially the first mile of a potential light rail line that could remove a significant amount of congestion from the causeway, as well as to connecting the population centers of Davis, West Sacramento, as it continues to grow. And well, I do believe that this 150,000 is the last contribution that the city would make. And West Sacramento significantly stepped up to the table to provide the vast majority of the funding. Congresswoman Matsui has put a lot of her political capital out there to secure these federal dollars. And I think we owe it to her to give it one last shot to get federal approval for a project. While it may not be the top priority for the city or for regional transit, I do think we also owe it to our partners across the river to give it this last try. So I will make a motion here to amend the agreement to hopefully meet some of the needs that we have. First, to dissolve the JPA, to relinquish city ownership by devolving the project ownership to regional transit, and to accomplish these tasks within 60 days. And with that, I will support the $150,000 from the city to finish out our commitment to this project. It's betting that a Biden administration will carry us over the finish line, and that the economy will recover, and our goals around regionalism are still vibrant and compelling as a vision for not only our city, but for the other cities around us.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I will second it.
Thank you, Councilmember Chenier. You're next on the dais.
Thanks. I think Councilmember Hanson was incredibly articulate about where we've been and where we are, and potentially where we can go in the future. So thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. I think I just want to add a couple of things here. You know, COVID has impacted us all in so many ways, and all of the organizations that we sit on as board members or commissioners. RT is no exception, although RT has not fared nearly as poorly as many others have. And I think that a lot of that is attributable to the last probably 5-6 years of leadership there, both on the board and with the general manager. I think they've done a great job cutting costs, being more efficient in what they do. In addition, there's a vision around a regional transportation system, or systems that work together. And along those lines, RT is providing service in Elk Grove, service in Folsom, and others. And I think YOLO is a potential. And I really like the vision of this being the first mile. I think that's great. I have no desire to leave potential. Well, first, let me say, we don't know what the ultimate outcome will be, even if we move forward tonight. We don't know what FTA will do. We can hope for a change in administrations, and I think that's one where our congresswoman would shine and be able to really help us out as we go forward. I think that this is a small amount of money to potentially reap $50 million in rewards. I don't want to be leaving that kind of money on the table. So with that, I'm very supportive of moving forward, of giving it our best shot here. I would like to offer a friendly amendment. In conversations And I want us to really implement the commitment that we made to West Sac and the deal that we made with West Sac. I don't want to back off that. And I also don't want to back off commitments that we've made to the Congresswoman, for which Steve is right. She has put out a lot of political capital over the years on this project. I don't want to short West Sac, and I'm not exactly sure what we will need as far as getting the planning done to get us to that next step. I know that SACOG is willing to front $300,000 if we need those funds to complete the next step of this project. And so I've had that conversation with them, and I believe with the city manager as well. And I know our city manager has been working with the city manager of West Sac to make sure we're aligned on this project. So Steve, I don't know if you would accept a friendly amendment that if needed, the city manager would be able to work with SACOG to get additional funds up to $300,000 to make sure that we have ample funds to get the planning done and getting to the next step of this project.
Thank you, Councilmember Schneer. Mayor, if it's okay, I'll respond.
Yeah.
Councilmember Schneer, at this point, I'm not comfortable accepting that friendly amendment, just for the sake that if we're going to devolve this project and its ownership and operations to regional transit, I would like to see those steps be taken first. I think the $150,000 along with the West Sacramento funding is sufficient for now to allow the work to restart. And then I would be open to coming back in the 60-day period to revisit the question. But at this point, I don't believe it's wise for the city to agree to borrow something before we know what we're getting. And since we won't own it, I think RT is better positioned to leverage grant money or SACOG funds in that scenario.
As long as we can come back within the 60-day period if we need those funds.
And that's just contingent on the two conditions to
fine.
dissolve the JPA.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep. Councilman Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to acknowledge some of the comments made by Councilmember Harris. I think there's no question we have an enormous amount of need for transportation funding, not only just for potholes and road maintenance so that our buses are riding on smooth and reliable roadways, but even double tracking in both, not only going toward the north but towards the east. The improvements that could happen on Highway 50. And I think, what I want, I think, both Councilmember Schneer and Councilmember Hansen, I think, though, have said it correctly, that we have to make sure that that we look at what are the possibilities of this first mile, because it's those regional projects, the combination of going to the north, the combination of going to the east, linking with our partners in West Sacramento. So many people who are now living in West Sacramento are commuting into Sacramento, pre-COVID, and I have faith that after this the pandemic, that once we manage to move through the pandemic, that we'll probably see the same issues of air quality that you saw when Jefferson Boulevard gets backed up and people are trying to get across the river. And so the preliminary study, and for those who want to watch the Air District hearing coming up in a few days, the preliminary research that's coming out about air quality effects, and because many of us have been staying home and not driving, and if we can acknowledge that there are significant improvements to NOx and particulate matters, I think, for us to stop that today and to deny an opportunity to have $50 million left on the table, I think is one that also looks at a detriment to thinking about what is regionalism and how that affects our overall air quality. So I agree that there's a lot of concern whether this project will move forward. I think the feds will figure that out. But if we don't get to that point of getting to that question, then we're leaving a significant amount of resources on the table. So I think we have to move forward on this. Our Congresswoman has done an immense amount of work to bring resources here. She's been fighting for that. I think it'd be difficult to continue to fight for more dollars if we don't at least give it the good old college try to figure out if these projects are are reliable. Technology is also advancing here too. So I think there's a lot that gives us an opportunity to look at how is technology going to impact us, and giving our city staff and engineers the ability to answer those questions is going to be helpful. So, as tricky as this project is, because, I'd love to have a BRT system down Stockton Boulevard that helps those folks in our district. I don't know how we could leave money on the table and then later on ask again for more money if we didn't do our due diligence here. So I think this is more a question about ensuring we go and do our due diligence. And I also think the JP has outlived its ability here. So I think the attempt, I think the point of ending the JPA is the right one, and then we can figure out what is the right path moving forward. But to close to Councilmember Harris's point, this is a conversation that has to start happening at the representative roles, or as local representatives, and not just staff driven at a staff level project. So I think there's a lot of points of that we have to move forward with. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Carr?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Sparky, could you put up the map of the 1.1 miles that we're talking about that will cost us $130 million?
Yes, sir. One second. I think I have to be allowed to share the screen again, and all right, is it up now?
Not for me. It's not there for me. I don't know if anybody else can see it.
How about
There
now?
you go.
Okay.
That's it. So where does this line originate?
It originates at the Sac Valley Station, which is here.
Okay, and goes down
3rd Street.
3rd Street and comes across it.
Across the Tower Bridge.
And where does it terminate?
Terminates at the, always get the name wrong, Sutter Health Park now.
Sutter Health.
Thank you.
Is that the Rayleigh Field parking lot?
Rayleigh Field was renamed to Sutter Health Park, yes.
Okay. So how many stops are on this line?
There are 3 stops. There'll be one here at the park, one here in front of the Embassy Suites next to Old Sacramento, and the final stop at the Sacramento Valley Station.
Okay.
That will link to light rail and Amtrak.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything planned to link the Rayleigh Field terminal to any other lines anywhere?
There are no current plans. There's discussion about future extensions, potentially to the West Sac Civic Center or even farther down to Southport, but those are all speculative at this point.
The speculation as we talk, as we sit here. So that parking lot, is that parking lot open to the public when there are no ball games at Rayleigh Field?
Yeah, I couldn't speak to the availability of parking at that lot.
I'm trying to figure out who would use this line and what benefit it would serve anyone in Sacramento other than to go from the train station to empty parking lot that you probably can't park at.
The line is relatively proximate to the STIRS project as well as the Ziggurat building.
So, I appreciate there's been a lot of work done. I supported the 4.4 miles, 19 stops project. I was happy to support that. I thought it would benefit greatly the people of the city of Sacramento. I saw easily how it could be used. I'm having a difficult time envisioning how we would use this, any benefit that would come to the people of the city of Sacramento. There's speculation that something may happen someday, sometime, somebody might do something. But right now, it doesn't look like there's a benefit to the people of Sacramento. And insofar as the argument to Congresswoman Matsui, we appreciate her efforts. We understand that she has used a lot of political capital to get the $50 million. But think of the political capital that she will have lost if we build a streetcar to nowhere. If it goes from the train station to nowhere, what will she look like? This sort of reminds me of the bridge to nowhere in Alaska. It's a street line to, yes.
Councilman Carr, if I could chime in, Hector Barone, Assistant City Manager. So in connecting to the Sacramento Valley Station, it also connects to the light rail system as a whole, and whether it's light rail or bus system. So there's some connections there if somebody's looking to get to West Sacramento or from West Sacramento to other parts of the light rail system. In West Sacramento, it does provide an opportunity to either further extend this line or provide a transit stop for buses or other modes of transportation for folks that are traveling from West Sacramento or through West Sacramento. So I want to highlight that. And Sparky is correct. We're not seeing detailed plans related to that, but it does provide those opportunities.
Well, I'm sure it provides an opportunity, but there's no plan to do it. And the limited number of people who want to leave from Sacramento to go to an empty parking lot, probably a few and far between. I can see how it could benefit people from West Sac to travel there and connect to our light rail system. But we are not West Sac, we are Sacramento. And I don't see how it benefits us to do that. And I think the political capital that will be lost by building a streetcar to nowhere would be much greater than the political capital lost by getting money for a project that doesn't actually pan out. And I think the Congresswoman should be grateful that we didn't waste the money and put it on something that didn't make any sense than to spend it just because we didn't want to leave money on the table. There's elsewhere in the government that money could be used. If it's not used here, it doesn't get burned up. It doesn't get thrown away. It's used on other projects that are deemed more essential. I think the converse is true on this loss of political capital. I think we gain capital by saying, we looked at it, we tried to engineer it, it doesn't work, take the money back, there are other places you can use it, and when we need your funds, we will come back to you and ask you to do that. So I am willing to support Councilmember Harris's proposal that we deny, we keep the $400,000 that we already have, the $149,000, and that we disband the JPA. So what I'm doing is seconding the original motion. Thank you, Mayor.
So we'll take that as a second for regional motion, but there's now been a substitute motion, which will take.
Mayor, the other one, Steve's was not a substitute motion since there was never a second on it. So Steve's motion would be on the floor. Somebody would have to make a substitute motion to that, I believe.
That's probably correct, right? Because there was not a, well.
Because there
wasn't a second until after I made my motion. So we could treat it as a substitute and take the substitute first.
You're going to have to make a substitute motion then if you want your motion to be voted on. Do you want to do that or not?
Yeah, Mayor, actually I would, and just make one more comment. You know, it really comes down to a decision. I fully comprehend the idea of leaving $50 million on the table, but it is ultimately taxpayer money, and it really should be allocated to a very viable project. You know, I personally don't see this as a viable project. I see it as a punt when a really good project didn't come to fruition. So my substitute motion would be as I stated originally.
Okay. And Councilmember Carr will second that, I assume, as a substitute motion. That's fine. Just we're just want to keep track procedurally. I have Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, and then I'm going to weigh in, but go ahead, Ms. Ashby.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm pretty confused by all of this one. Can I just ask, I guess, Sparky a question here?
Yes, ma'am.
I sort of understand this is one of those projects that I had a hard time with from the get-go because downtown Sacramento already has so many transit opportunities. And yet I think it's a pretty good idea, but it's just really hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that we've even spent this amount of time and staff time. And I don't just mean tonight's meeting, I mean years and dollars working on this when we still don't have light rail to the airport. My district has 2 bus lines. When Uber and when the jump bikes came, we didn't fight for the north or the south to get them. We sort of were okay with the enlarged central city, light rails downtown. Even our best bike lanes are downtown. They're protected, and in some ways, this is all huge compliments to Councilmember Hanson and everybody else who's represented downtown. The transit opportunities there are enormous. And we just haven't had this type of conversation about investment in this kind of infrastructure in Del Paso Heights or Meadowview. And that bothers me. And it's a lot of money, really a lot of money. I understand, some people might watch this and go, why don't you just shift that money to Meadowview? And obviously we can't. It doesn't work like that. This money is specific to that project and has to do with multiple cities and multiple counties working together, and a congresswoman sticking her neck out for us, and a mayor from another city sticking his neck out for us. And I get all of that. And that is why I have sort of gone along to this point to say, okay, well, if we can draw down federal funds and get an urban circulator like this, and it increases, as I'm told, the distance that people will travel for lunch or breakfast when they're already downtown, then I guess that's a good thing, right? But now it's like one problem after the next has come for this project, and we're still trying to force it to be. And while I love Councilmember Chenier's can-do attitude, and actually I love the way he worded it, hey, first mile, and then we'll just keep working on it, and more people will come and we'll get to it, and more money. But I'm struggling with the idea that we would spend that much money and political collateral and staff time on transportation in an area that is, first of all, only partially the city, and second of all, it's not needed right now. There's so many other opportunities right there. But I understand the long-term play is to just sort of get your foot in the door. So I'm really torn on what to do. And probably, unless Sparky, you have some compelling thing to say to me, it's hard for me to sit in the I am probably the farthest away physically located council member from the urban core. Maybe Councilmember Carr might be, but one of the two of us, or Councilmember Warren. And it's like a different world when you come out to transportation in my area. You have to have a car. You can't live in Natomas without a car. You wouldn't be able to get anywhere. And so it just bothers me that we're looking at transportation mode number 4 or 5 for the same area. That's hard, especially when we have the airport. And it just seems like that should be more of a focus, and we should be getting that green line out there, and we should be focusing on, how to get people from Northgate to Job Corps, Central to the college. I just feels all kinds of wrong to me from a socioeconomic standpoint. And so probably what I will do is support Councilmember Harris's motion, and if it fails, also support Councilmember Hanson's, because I don't know another way to sort of do it. I think that money would be better used elsewhere in our city, but I understand we're not able to shift that money. I just am having a hard time with the city advancing that kind of collateral and funding and staff time towards a project that is somewhat redundant when we have areas with nothing. Like literally Del Paso Heights doesn't even have sidewalks. There are parts of North Sac, and it's not our fault. We adopted it from the county. No street lights, no curbs, no gutters, no sidewalks. How could we put in a second rail line downtown before we give them sidewalks? I struggle with that one.
Okay, before I turn it over to Councilmember Hanson, I'm going to make some comments. First of all, I have a question for Sparky, and it's a technical question around the dissolution of the JPA, which I support. I don't think it is needed at this point anymore. But in terms of the timing is the dissolution, does it affect the application for this new project if we dissolve the JPA prior to the application being considered? Is there any relevance as to the timing of the dissolution?
I can give you my best guess. At this point, Regional Transit intends to submit the application at the end of this month. I don't see any path forward that would actually dissolve the JPA before that time.
Okay, so it's not really a problem. The timing will play out on its own naturally. Okay, thank you. So I got to tell you, I hear the arguments against this, but I frankly urge my colleagues very strongly to see the big picture here and to understand what political capital really means. Because if this is, in fact, is a zero-sum game, I suppose we're all in trouble because we're not going to get much in the end. But we have a Congresswoman who consistently delivers for us, delivers in the tens of millions of dollars on flood control, on transportation. And she has told us that unless we continue to try to gain that $50 million of federal funding, that our credibility will be harmed at the Federal Transit Administration, under this administration and under the Biden administration. That you can't short circuit a process as difficult as this has been, and as much as this has changed, and by the way, it changed because the cost of the original streetcar project was too high. But political capital means doing the right thing by your partners so that in the long run, you can actually draw down tens of millions of more dollars than you otherwise would. We want the Congresswoman in our quarter fighting for the double tracking, and she will. But we want that entire federal bureaucracy that we don't know as well as she does back there fighting for us as well. And so if we continue to think like a small city, that it's zero sum, if we do this, we're not doing the double tracking, then we are never going to realize our potential as a great city who can do two things at one time and can compete on multiple levels for federal funding, for the variety of aspirations that we have. And so I feel very, very strongly that $150,000, really, to enable us to continue to follow through on, by the way, what we promised the people of West Sacramento, what we've been working on for years, that we at least see it through. We don't know what the outcome will be. If we do get the federal funding, it's going to be a heck of a project. And if we don't, then we will have followed through and been faithful to our partners here. And I think that's important because that's how you build political capital as a city, to be able to do a lot more. Think like a big city, not like a small city. Councilman Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate those comments. I just want to circle back to something Councilmember Ashby said about the Green Line to the airport. It's an extremely important project, and we have over 100,000 people north of the river who need better transit access. It'll help on a variety of fronts. One of the things I know Hector Barone is on here, I've talked to him and Ryan Moore about for about 2 years, is prioritizing the pre-development work for the American River Bridge. Their American River Bridge is the linchpin for getting across the river, or as we might say sometimes, over the river and through the woods to Councilmember Ashby's house. Sorry. And what I would like is, if there is consensus around this, the American River Bridge also offers us important evacuation routes. It allows for people for not just transit, but for vehicles to also get off of I-5 to reduce congestion. I think that while it may not be part of the motion tonight, what I'm hearing is that that project, I hope that Hector, you, Ryan, and whoever else is necessary, begin to take seriously the city's role. RT is willing to devolve that American River Bridge project to us to let us be the lead agency, like we are on the I Street replacement bridge. And we should not let these unmet transit needs in our own city be relegated. And I think that's a very important point. So I just wanted to lift up Councilmember Ashby's comment about Natomas and transit service, and ultimately fulfilling that. It's why I encouraged RT to start the airport service that unfortunately is suspended now due to COVID, but we have to continue and redouble our efforts to get across the river and up to provide transit to Natomas and the northern part of the city.
Okay, thank you very, very much. So we do have a substitute motion. Let us call the roll on the substitute motion made by Vice Mayor Harris and seconded by Councilmember Carr.
Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren, Councilmember Warren. We'll check on him. Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Abstain.
Councilmember Chenier, Councilmember Chenier, you're muted.
No, he's not, but he said yes. Or he said no, I'm sorry, he said no.
Can I have a thumbs up or thumbs down, please? Thank you. Councilmember Jennings
No.
and Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Mayor Steinberg.
No. So what is the vote?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Guerra?
Yeah, I wasn't, the clerk didn't call them.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Guerra.
Councilmember
Yeah,
Guerra.
no, yeah.
And let me confirm, Councilmember Warren is online. Councilmember Warren?
Councilmember Warren, do you need the vote repeated?
He may have stepped away, so we will count him as absent. I have 3 ayes, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
And how many noes?
3.
So the motion fails. It's 3 yes votes, 3 no votes, 2 abstentions, and 1 absent. So the motion fails. Let's call the roll on the main motion, please.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
This is Councilmember Hanson's motion. Councilmember Hanson, as part of your motion, and if I believe Councilmember Chenier was your second, if you would you make your comments about just staff beginning to look at the American River crossing part of your motion?
I I would be very pleased to do that. And maybe what I would say, Councilmember Ashby, if it's satisfying to you, is that in that same 60-day period,
Oh, you muted yourself partway through.
sorry, is that the staff come back to us in the next 60 days with a proposal for how to move forward on the American River Bridge as part of my motion.
If we'll accept it, then I think that would be great.
Yeah, it's fine with me. I would ask our attorney if we can do that under the Brown Act, since it wasn't agendized. I'm happy to do it, or we could provide direction on that, but I'm not sure if it can be part of the motion.
Yeah, that's fine. It can be added to the motion.
It's all right?
Thank you.
All right. I accept it.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Aye.
Councilmember Chenier,
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Aye.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you. Let us now move on to item 17, which is the CARES Act oral report here. Let me ask, are we taking 17 and 18 and 19 together?
Yes, 17 and 18.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you recommended 17 and 18
Yeah,
together.
17 and 18, we're going to hear together. Thank you very much. This is essentially the housing and homelessness package, including CARES Act funding. So I know it's going to be a presentation by multiple leaders here. How would you like?
So, Mr. Mayor, this is Emily Halkin, Homeless Services Manager. Yes, it is a collaborative effort, and so I'm going to kick it off, and then my colleagues Danielle Foster, the Housing Policy Manager, and Celia Iniguez, the Program Manager at SHRA, we're going to tag team this if that works for you. But I've got to pull up my PowerPoint. Okay. So while the needs of people experiencing homelessness and those at risk of homelessness have definitely intensified, as we all knew, due to COVID-19, luckily, so have the resources, both from the state and federal government. And we are not often in such a place where we have this availability of new resources for homelessness and housing. And there is, but there is also tremendous opportunity, but we also need to make sure we are comprehensively looking at options to create new programs and to sustain existing programs. At the direction of the council, tonight we are bringing forward recommendations for almost $36 million in funding, hopefully leveraging up to an additional $25 million in state home key funding. And so tonight's conversation will focus on the 4 funding buckets shown on this screen. $15.6 million from the city's CARES funding that is definitely flexible in scope, but must be spent very quickly. $10.2 million in what we're calling ESG2. This is funding dedicated to homeless programs, and SHRA is going to discuss this a little bit more detail later. $2.8 million in CDBG, specifically from the CARES Act, which was previously committed to the COVID response plan, but might be more impactful in supporting other projects. And then an anticipated $7.4 million from what we're calling HAP 3, which is the state funding program that is dedicated to homeless populations, and which we anticipate having funding guidelines and applications as soon as this winter. As staff worked to refine our recommendations and to review the many proposals that we got both from council members as well as from the community, we looked to fund programs and projects that addressed one or more of these principles here. First, that we wanted to ensure sufficient isolation and quarantine capacity for homeless populations due to COVID-19. Aligning with that, we wanted to commit to try to permanently rehouse as many folks as possible who have been isolating in our COVID shelters. We want to increase the stock of affordable housing throughout the city, incentivizing efficiency and maybe some new types of housing. And we certainly want to prevent those most at risk from becoming homeless. So our approach is really to organize the projects and the funding requests that we're going to talk about today into 3 tiers, and we're going to walk you through these. Tier 1 are projects that have previously been considered or funded, in some cases by the council. Tier 2 are the new programs that we're recommending tonight to allocate funding towards. And Tier 3 are projects that aren't currently recommended for funding. And these are all detailed in Exhibit A to the resolution, first item number 18. So Tier 1 includes $8.6 million of funding from both CRF and the HAP 3 buckets that have previously been discussed or approved at council. Hopefully these items all look familiar to you, and they include funding for St. John's and City of Refuge sheltering transitional programs, funds to support our Public Works Department and additional encampment cleanup, some funds to support housing for essential city staff, the Meth Sobering Center, which I know you had a workshop about a few weeks ago, and some rental mediation services, which are already underway. Also included in this Tier 1 proposal is the mayor's recently announced Tiny Home Initiative, and the first component of the COVID-19 response plan that I'm going to talk about in a minute, that will allow the extension of our quarantine and isolation motels and trailers through December, really aligning with some updated guidance we've gotten from public health. So going back to the COVID plan, which is a part of the Tier 1 recommendations, as you will recall, on April 7th of this year, the City Council, the Board of Supervisors, and the Continuum of Care Board simultaneously approved a collaborative plan to respond to the needs of the homeless population around the COVID-19 pandemic. The plan called for investments in 3 main areas shown here, supporting our existing sheltering programs, increasing the isolation and quarantine capacity, and addressing the needs of people living unsheltered in encampments. Collectively, the city, the county, and the Continuum of Care invested over $15 million in this plan, and staff of all 3 agencies have been implementing since early April. To date, this plan has resulted in operation of almost 560 rooms and units and trailers for preventative quarantine, primarily through motels that the county is leasing and managing. Operation of 28 trailers specifically for medical isolation of folks who are experiencing homelessness and have a COVID positive diagnosis. And deployment of sanitation stations, food, and other services to encampments throughout the county. In addition, in partnership with the county health services, over 1,200 people experiencing homelessness have been tested for COVID-19 in our shelters and encampments and at some day centers, but thus far only 8 have yielded positive results. I do want to note that we have had additional positive cases tested through hospitals and clinics. This represents the tests that were proactively done by the Public Health Department. Because Sacramento didn't experience outbreaks of COVID-19, luckily in our shelters, like some other communities did, we were able to use the new isolation and quarantine units to bring in some of our most vulnerable folks directly from the street. This shows some of the demographics. There's a much more detailed report put out on a monthly basis by Sacramento Steps Forward. But what I wanted to point out is that like most emergency shelters in our community, our preventative quarantine units are seeing a population with a very, very significant level of need. However, unlike traditional shelters, the stays in the preventative quarantine units are by design very limited in terms. And they do not come with intensive case management or rehousing services. It really was an immediate crisis response. And so while getting people inside on a temporary crisis basis has been a really great step, and I think that we've made a tremendous strides to successfully end homelessness for this cohort of people, we will need some intensive ongoing services that may go beyond the term of the pandemic.
Quick question,
so 4 months in.
Quick
yeah.
question for you. Can you go back to the previous slide, the one before this?
This one?
The previous slide before this.
Sorry.
Yes. Of the 557 rooms, how many people are living there now?
We're at capacity virtually every day. Over the course of the time that it's been open, we've had over 1,000 people inside coming and going. The capacity at any point in time tends to hover in the high 600s because we do shelter couples and other family configurations.
So you have capacity in the rooms and trailers. What about the medical isolation?
The medical isolation, we're not always at capacity, but we have seen an increase in demand. When we first opened, we had the entire Cal Expo site set aside for medical isolation, all 59, and it was clear we didn't need all of those. So we then reduced it to 18, and then based on the need, public health increased it to 28. I'd say at any point in time, the number of folks in medical isolation varies pretty dramatically, but we have seen upwards of 10 to 15 people at a point in time. The stay in the medical isolation is also very short. So once you've cleared your isolation period, we move you on to the quarantine units to make space again in that medical supported unit.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So we're now 4 months in, and based on guidance from the federal and state governments, as well as our public health department, the county, we are now refocusing our efforts to plan for a housing surge, really trying to take advantage of a point in time where we have, for very unique circumstances, significantly more people engaged with our crisis response system and to try to make a lasting change for those folks. To do this, the amended plan that is in front of you today recommends continuation of the work in the encampments that's primarily overseen by Sacramento Steps Forward through September. It also recommends continuation of the quarantine and isolation shelters through December, but not opening any additional motels, so staying at the number that we currently have. And instead, refocusing the funding and staffing that was to open more motels to support the rehousing of the existing guests. We recognize that we're working in an incredibly short time frame. We don't know the course of the pandemic, but as of right now, we have approximately 4 months to try to rehouse up to 500 very vulnerable households. And we know this is ambitious, and we know it might not be feasible, but all of the partners in this plan are committed to leaning in on this. We've already started connecting guests with existing rehousing programs that they might be eligible for in the community and helping to support those community partners to expedite and speed up their efforts. So tonight's action around the rehousing seeks $4 million, which is going to be matched by the county to add rehousing capacity to the county's flexible housing program. This would be for those who aren't connected to another housing program like veterans programs or our Pathways programs. The flexible housing program is modeled after similar rehousing programs and provides up to 18 months of flexible rental assistance, intensive supportive services, both for the client themselves as well as for landlords. Additional housing that may be added to our Project Home Key applications that Celia and Danielle are going to talk about certainly will help to augment this. So the projects I just spoke to sort of are straddling tiers 1 and tier 2. The tier 1 included $1.15 million in CRF, and then tier 2 includes 2 components of the amended response plan. $2.7 million to swap what was previously identified as CDBG to then swap out into our Project Home Key applications, and a $4 million investment to support the rehousing program in collaboration with the county. Tier 2 also includes refunding of 2 critical homeless programs whose funds are expiring this winter using the ESG CARES funds. Those are the North 5th Street Navigation Center, which has 104 beds serving the unsheltered population in the River District, as well as the Downtown Streets team that does outreach and engagement, again, in the River District, providing some critical support there. I'm going to now turn it over to Danielle, who will walk you through the remainder of Tier 2 and Tier 3.
Thanks, Emily. On the housing side for Tier 2, there are 3 main areas that I want to highlight and outline here, and then Celia will add additional information during her presentation. First, the city has heard from the community and has discussed during council meetings prior the need for rental assistance for a homeless prevention program. SHRA is still envisioning this program, but estimates serving 1,000 very low-income households with the funding set aside here to respond to the impacts of COVID. SHRA will provide additional detail during their presentation and will be seeking further council direction on how to target the program and deliver it to the community. 2 other areas on the housing side of Tier 2 include funding for manufactured housing and the Hawthorne Suites motel acquisition projects, both leveraging additional 25 million up to 25 million in state home key funds. The manufactured housing units will provide housing for women and children, both homeless and at risk of homelessness, and possibly exiting St. James or Weave's emergency and transitional programs. These units will access existing supportive services through St. John's, Weave, and their partners, and they will be brought online quickly at a lower per unit cost than typical affordable housing, consistent with city goals towards rehousing and exploring new ways of providing affordable housing more efficiently. The motel acquisition funding here is envisioned to assist with the initial minor rehab of the Hawthorne Suites to provide the 102 units for the interim housing period, as well as up to 3 years of operational funding for the site. While this interim housing is underway, the site will continue to pursue the necessary funding to provide the 200 units of permanent supportive housing and workforce housing for the River District. Tier 3 highlights the other potential programs that we received both through proposals from the community as well as funding gaps that are on the horizon in the future that we were not able to fund through this funding. We received many thoughtful responses from the community and requests from the community of very worthy projects, but based on prior council action and priorities, these proposals are not being recommended for funding at this time. We did want to include consideration of them as part of council's discussion and future planning for funds. I'll now pass it over to Celia, who will describe the additional detail of the SHRA initiatives I highlighted in Tier 2.
All right, good evening, Celia Iniguez, Program Manager with Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. So the two programs that SHRA will be administering, the first, as Danielle mentioned, we are still formulating it. So this is the current framework. This is the Homeless Prevention Program. It will provide rental assistance. Eligible applicants would be, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, would be at 50% of area median income or less. These applicants would be are unemployed due to COVID-19 and are without assistance or facing eviction. We currently envision that the priority would be given with families with minor children. So this is the current framework. We would need to come back to approve this program fully fleshed out, as well as to allocate the funds, the ESG funds, the Emergency Solutions Grant funds as well. And we anticipate that in mid to late September. So you will be seeing this and you will be acting on this as the council in the future. The other program you've already previously heard last week, which is the motel acquisition program, which is a match for the Home Key, the state's Home Key program. We were here last week for the approval of submission of applications, as mentioned at the Hawthorne Suites. Currently, we're waiting to hear back from the Housing and Community Development Department to see if we were awarded. Again, this program will also require project approvals. If awarded funding from the state, the project will be back for funding approvals. So those are the two that SHRA will be administering, and I'm going to hand it back off to Danielle for a summary.
So in summary, through the outlined recommendations, utilizing 36 million of local funding and leveraging up to 25 million of state funds, the City of Sacramento is responding to the impacts of COVID-19 as it relates to homelessness and rapid rehousing needs by allocating up to $62 million for the following: 1,000 shelter beds, 432 permanent housing options, including 200 placements into the flexible housing pool and 232 affordable units, 1,000 households assisted with homeless prevention through rental assistance, and a variety of services and supports to reduce potential evictions, get individuals rehoused, and reduce the spread of COVID to the vulnerable homeless population. That concludes our presentation. Staff from both City and SHRA are available for any questions.
Outstanding presentation, by the way. I mean, just exciting to just see all of the possibilities turned into reality for so many people. I know there are a number of members who have weighed in. Do we have public comment? We do. Why don't we take the public comment first?
Thank you. I have 10 callers. May I have my first caller, please? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name is Julie. I am with the Veteran Services Program, and we are also part of the VAC Collaborative that also submitted a request for the CARES Act funding. The organization I work with currently do house our veterans, but one part of our veteran group that's not counted for is our Guard and Reserves, who do not serve on active duty, are ineligible for any of our veteran housing employment services, such as SSVF housing, employment, HUD-VASH. The COVID-19 pandemic has significantly impacted hundreds of Guard and Reserves members. Many are left without assistance, causing the homeless or at risk of homelessness. This is a huge gap in serving our military members. Currently, there are approximately about 80,000 veterans within Sacramento County, not including the Guard and the Reserves. According to the PID count, there is 668 homeless veterans. Again, those are not including our Guard and Reserves or those who are in hiding. On any given day during drill weekends, there are 14 Army reservists, 250 Marine reservists, and a few hundred Navy reservists. And as you know, the National Guard within Sacramento is a very huge population. Guard and Reserves members, including some with families, are currently homeless and staying on our reserve properties or armies where they feel safe because they do not have a veteran organization to go to because they are not considered veterans due to no active duty status. The lack of federal, state, county funding for our Guard and Reserve members will put them at risk of homelessness, and those are the homeless, and those that are homeless is placed into the civilian sector with no additional veteran resources. So I take in consideration the ESG funding and look at our Guard
Thank you
and
for your
Reserve.
comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
So our proposal is submitted in the beginning of July. We'd like to close this gap between civilian and veteran services. The Guard and Reserve members drop everything, including their families.
Thank you for
when
your
they're called up.
comments. Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, my name is William Franco III. I'm the commander of the Veterans Affiliated Council. I'm here on behalf of the VAC Collaborative that submitted a proposal. I am representing realistically all districts, but we're working out of District 4. I wanted to begin by thanking you for your commitment to the people of Sacramento, and on behalf of 83,000 veterans here, 10,000 National Guard, 3,000 reservists, and countless veteran families within our community, we definitely appreciate you. The VAC was founded in 1921, making it 99 years old, and we have over 28 veteran service organizations to its membership roster and over 50 community partners. We have served a large number of veterans due to the impacts of COVID-19, and we anticipate a large influx of those seeking aid once the moratorium is lifted. Landlords, mortgage companies, and utility providers will want all that back pay. Many of our veterans have asked us for food, clothing, jobs, help with utility bills to prevent them from being shut off, money for hotel stays, car repairs, and so much more. With our proposal, we direly need this funding to help them, as well as the various VSOs that have lost their potential revenue from COVID not being able to conduct safe fundraising due to the SIP orders. And we've also reached out to various partners to reach the maximum amount of veterans within the community. With that, per the City of Sacramento Impact Report, the residents at 89% staying home and a total of 8% volunteering, there's quite a bit of impact. Our connections would be the American Legion, various posts, American Veterans Post 1, Association of U.S. Army, Brotherhood of American Combat Veterans, Buffalo Soldiers, Coast Guard Combat Veterans Association, Disabled American Veterans Association, and employer support of the Guard, ESGR, homeless American veterans, Mexican American Sports Hall of Fame Association, Military Officers Association, Motel 6, support National Association Medical.
Thank you for your
and
comments. Your
Sportsmen.
time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
I just wanted to say that we really urge that with number 18 that we don't move forward, and that we do use some of the funding from this 17 and the COVID funds here to help hit some of those deltas that we've missed over the years.
Thank you for your
with the
comments.
one-stop shop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name is Robert Copeland. I belong to the Sacramento Tenants Union, and I live in District 4. I've got a few questions. One, why isn't Mayor Steinberg, since he's on the governor's task force for homelessness, try to get all these vacant housing units rented out or sold to people? Two, 1,000 people are going to be rental assistance. We don't know how many people are actually going to be evicted because of COVID-19. Three, I think the money you're spending should be increased on all these programs. Four, Sacramento should do a lot better job keeping people in their housing and putting people that are homeless into permanent housing, not transitional, but permanent housing from the shelters, from the streets. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Yes. Hello, my name is Max Baumgartner, and I'm the president with the Sacramento Stand Down. We're also part of the BAC collaborative that submitted a request for the CARES Act funding program on July 10th, 2020 proposal representing Sacramento Stand Down. My council district is 6. Sacramento Stand Down assists veterans to include National Guard and reservists through our Help in Hands Fund who are not eligible with other organizations. These services may include utilities, rental payments, food, auto repair, motel stays, bus passes, and so many other needs through our fund. Sacramento Stand Down assists more than 400 homeless veterans on an average year and approximately 200 Guard and reservists annually. We know that due to this pandemic, this number will grow. Sacramento Stand Down conducts events that help to provide services such as medical, dental, vision, chiropractic, DMV, court services, child support. This is an accomplishment with 50-plus community partners who attend our various events and provide the services. Some of these include CalVet, BA, multiple veteran organizations, homeless housing and employment programs. Our events also include hot meals. Some major items that are provided to the veterans during our events are military-grade boots, jackets, blankets, socks, underclothing, sleeping bags, and other necessities. Sacramento Stand Down has added the National Guard and Reserves to our program due to the increase in homelessness at high-risk homelessness with this population. The funds from the CARE Act will allow Sacramento Stand Down to continue its services to veterans, guardsmen, and reservists affected by this
Thank you for your comments. Your
pandemic.
time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
Yes, I feel that it's very important that the CARES Act releases funds as soon as possible because these Guard and Reserve especially do not have the support they need. And if we don't provide the support, they will become
Thank you for your
homeless.
comments. Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. My name is Phil Rios. I live in District 7. I'm a Sacramento native. I'm a 73-year-old veteran, combat vet. As a past commander of Veterans Affiliated Council of Sacramento County, established 1921, the VAC has provided support and services to between 8,000 and 12,000 veterans over time. I personally see with my wife to assist homeless veterans along Franklin Boulevard, under the I-5 Riches Boulevard, and many other areas that we travel. The primary source that assists me to get them help and accommodations is Volunteers of America Veterans Service Center. The director is Julie Baumgartner, and they also cover substance abuse, providing shelter, and filing claims, helping the veterans file claims, which I also do. And I just want to focus on 17 out of 17, and I am hopefully that will be granted in their favor. And that's pretty much concludes what I have to say.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Ben Avey with WellSpace Health. I am calling in tonight to share our support for the proposal that has been put forward to you today. As one of the region's largest healthcare providers to people who are experiencing homelessness, we know how vulnerable these folks are, especially in a pandemic with COVID-19. As we say, housing is a vital sign that we have to check because it has such a disproportionate impact on the health of somebody. So when we talk about vulnerable populations with COVID, we have to talk about people who are experiencing homelessness. So housing them, providing services to them is just going to be so important if we are going to continue to stop major outbreaks within the homeless community. And we applaud the city council and city staff for taking this proactive action, especially as we are going into fall, where we will see people starting to come back together into congregate living, congregate situations to avoid the rain, to avoid the cold, some of the things that they may have been able to avoid this summer, but now we're going to be forced back into that living. So thank you for taking these steps to provide folks with options for temporary and longer-term housing and really working to prevent major COVID-19 outbreaks within the homeless community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Adra O'Coral, and I am the Policy Director of the Sacramento Housing Alliance. I've called to say that we are in support of the Homelessness Response Plan and using CARES funds for the creation and preservation of housing. The initial expenditures to fund SHRA to develop the rental assistance program is a great beginning, but we need a larger investment. We must also ensure that we're tracking districts and zip codes where the aid is going to make sure that those who need rental assistance most are assisted and all Sacramentans are assisted equitably, including our Black and Latinx community members who are at high risk of eviction due to systemic racism and inequality. The Sacramento Housing Alliance stresses the need to get people housed, to keep them housed, and preserve current and future affordable housing development. In addition to addressing shortfalls in the affordable housing inventory, we need to bolster the entire $62 million city plan, including the investment in tiny homes, the landlord incentive program, and Project Room Key program. In summation, we appreciate all the efforts that are going forth, but there are still over 38,000 individuals and families in our region who are at risk for being homeless if we do not affirmatively move by prioritizing housing. As Mayor Pro Tem Ashby had mentioned, prevention of homelessness is key. So please carve out additional and residual funds to create and preserve housing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Okay. Hello, council members. My name is Yasmin Farghani, and I'm a resident of Bachelor Street in River District 3. I'm calling in support of the Homelessness Response Plan, but I'm here to urge you for a larger investment and more action. Our community suffers from chronic homelessness more so than other areas in Sacramento due to being located right between the river pathway and Loaves and Fishes. The homeless camp combined with the coronavirus pandemic has resulted in a public health and safety risk in our small community, which is made up of mostly elderly members. We've seen firsthand self-defecation, nudity, drug use, violence, and suspected human trafficking activity right in front of our doorstep. This is preventing our residents from taking a walk or a bike, which is very necessary during this pandemic, which is limiting us from doing other activities. I appreciate that Council Member Angelique Ashby has delivered portable toilets and sanitation stations to this area. However, more substantial action is needed, especially in this 110-degree weather. It's inhumane to knowingly leave this vulnerable population out in the heat. I request that the city immediately engage this vulnerable population in this area, Bachelor Street, and to allocate considerable resources by providing these people housing and shelter for this population. And I also like to reiterate some of the comments that were made earlier that we need permanent and substantial shelter, not temporary or transitional housing. We need a permanent solution to this problem. Otherwise, it will just
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
Yes, I urge the city to act and provide more funding and a bigger investment and focus on this area. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor Steinberg and council members. My name is Mike Jaski, representing Sacramento Area Congregations Together, or SAC-ACT. I'm a city resident in Council Member Guerra's District 6. SAC-ACT submitted an extensive comment letter to you yesterday, generally supporting the original version of item 18 as posted last week, an amendment to the original three-part COVID-19 plan. Let me summarize our recommendations in 2 points. First, the rehousing portion of the COVID-19 plan amendment. Staff now proposes to extend the operation of motels and perhaps trailers for an extended period. SAC-ACT agrees that more time is needed. Staff proposes that a goal of 500 residents be established and worries that this is extremely difficult to accomplish by the end of September. SAC-ACT agrees with their worries. So why not extend the time and reduce the pressure on agency staff caused by this artificial deadline? The cost per month will decrease as residents become housed. More importantly, the goal of 500 in the staff amendment is contradictory to the principle stated on page 6 of 31 of the last Thursday's original text, in that all willing motel residents should be rehoused, not turned out to the street, not just 500. Second point, the amendment is completely devoid of description of encampment outreach efforts beyond the original cutoff date of July 30th. That actually didn't happen, perhaps because of the county's funding, but it still is not mentioned in the most recent materials. SAC-ACT urges the council to explicitly adopt an encampment outreach effort that includes the elements that were funded from April through July, but expand them in 2 ways. First, fund trash pickup and not the cleanup from the destruction of camps.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
Recognize that most encampments have been sanctioned on a de facto basis. They've been supported for more than 4 months. Support them, make them sanitary and habitable until something is better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Mayor, I have no more callers on this item.
Okay, thank you very much for the public testimony. Now let's turn to the members. I've got Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, Councilmember Hanson, Councilmember Warren, Councilmember Guerra.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, I think, really exciting. It's, over $60 million worth of investment. Lachelle, Danielle, and Emily great job putting this together. The presentation too, really succinct, but more importantly, meaningful, extremely meaningful work to be done here. And this is exactly what we said we were going to do, and we're doing it. $62 million invested in trying to keep people in their homes, dealing with people who can't pay their rent, helping women and children. You know, there are 170 some odd women and children in the City of Refuge and St. John's programs alone. The transitional housing that Councilmember Guerra has championed for St. John's and Weave is extremely important. Councilmember Harris's, his push for us to focus on better for shelter in terms of hotels and renovations to those is coming to fruition here. This has got a little bit of everybody on this council in it, something that everyone has pushed, and I think it's really good. And I would like to make a motion for item 18. I believe 17 is just on for presentation, but for item 18 to close the public comment and move the item. But I would like to do one additional thing, which is I think we need to waive the 10-day contract rule or procedure, because some of these items need to happen immediately prior to 10 days. So I'm going to make that part of the motion. And I would also like to add as part of the motion that staff work with Council Vice Mayor Harris specific to the very small community in the River District that exists. And he could tell you the exact streets. It's really only about 3 or 4 streets, but they exist right between the Levee, Capital Casino, and Loaves and Fishes. They need help. It is full of great people who are being extremely patient and kind. And you heard some of them call in today and even thank us for the work that we're doing. And I know there are lots of communities impacted, but not like that. Not like that one. We have got to go down there and help them. And that needs to be a part of whatever we do here today. So that's my motion.
Thank you. That is a motion to approve the staff recommendation, but to waive the 10-day requirement. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Are there seconds, thirds, fourths? Okay, I'm not sure who it was. The Vice Mayor Harris. Okay. Let us move on then to the other members here. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to catch up with who was next. Councilmember Hanson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff and I were simultaneous, so maybe we can split that second. I just first want to congratulate you and our team from the city and SHRA on what is probably one of the most comprehensive, full-scale attempts to really change the structure of our homelessness programs and to invest very significant amounts of money. $62 million in a city like ours is a lot, and it's on top of prior investments. So I want to congratulate you and the council and our staff for bringing this forward. It is extremely comprehensive. It's almost like a symphony. And the piece that I just want to highlight is the rental assistance piece. I know we've talked about it a few times, and I want to thank you and the staff for ensuring that got included here. I know that it may not be sufficient to help everyone, but I think it's a very important start. And the fact that SHRA has some experience running programs like this will really help getting that going right away as the legislature debates foreclosure issues, back rent, and how to really dig us out of the deep hole that the pandemic has created. Further, I do think that there is an important conversation to be had here. We had some of it last week. While I second the item, I think there's still a lot of work for the staff to do. Right now, we have 3 hotels in the city that are doing Project Roomkey, and I believe there's one in the county in Rancho Cordova. Of those, one of those properties will close at the end of September, and that's the one in District 2 by commitment the county made. The remaining 2 in the city are within about 1.5 miles of each other. in my district, one on Jaboom, the La Quinta, and the other is the Vagabond Hotel right off of I Street. And it's important to me and my constituents. Some of my neighbors here in Alkali Flat are very worried, especially because Councilmember Harris, Vice Mayor Harris, even though I think he, well-intentioned, thought the sobering center would be in District 3, it is in fact in District 4. And I've had some very productive conversations with WellSpace about how they will operate that. They've agreed to a good neighbor policy and to do some stakeholder outreach. I know they're going to meet with the Downtown Partnership, and I've asked them as well to meet with the Alkali Flat Mansion Flats Neighborhood Association about it. Given that the project is essentially a pilot to run for 3 months, the sobering center, I do and am concerned about its sustainability. And in conversations late yesterday with Jonathan Porteous, the CEO of WellSpace, encourage them to continue to pursue medical reimbursement programs. This CARES Act funding is only for 3 months. This is a trial. And indeed, those two hotels I talked about are in my district, as well as Capitol Park, which will be ramping down, and the sobering center. Well, I know the Meadowview shelter is going to be up and running soon. We've been stymied on the WX. I do believe that other parts of the city are as deserving of access to homeless services as is the core, whether it's the River District or the downtown. And I hope that our staff take to heart the challenge that I'm going to present, which is to continue to diversify these services beyond the geographic concentration that continues to be the easiest to find. And some of that's NIMBYism. Some of that's just access to certain types of buildings and resources. And some of it, I think, is just a challenge of creativity to really find new ways to provide these services. While I'm supportive of this and think it's extremely, extremely important, I want to make sure that we continue to show that no one neighborhood, no one part of the city is going to bear the burden of these programs. So thank you, Mayor, and I hope that we have a unanimous vote and can deploy this money successfully.
Good point about sustainability for all these investments, actually. But I'll tell you, once we show success, we'll find the money. We always do. Councilmember Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think staff and city staff, SHRA, I think has done a very good job at putting together a comprehensive plan. I know, Mayor, that came with your leadership, and so I want to thank you for your everlasting leadership on these very difficult issues, because you know, a lot of this stuff I think has to be championed by the mayor of our city, and then supported by the council. And so I thank you and city staff as well as SHRA. I have a question, something that was brought to me, and a concern as it relates particularly to one of the properties that is being anticipated to being acquired, and that is the Hawthorne Suites property, and it's from adjoining or property owners in close proximity. One of which who's invested, in excess of $5 million in his property, and is anticipating building some multifamily housing. And so, the question that I have right now is: on properties that we've considered buying or in contract to buy, have we been in touch with adjacent or surrounding property owners to really try to understand the potential impacts and effects that properties in close proximity may have as a result of these investments? And so I think it's very important to know because what we don't want to do is, we are aggressively moving forward on trying to house people that are unhoused or that need assistance. We do not want to, I think, do it in a vacuum in understanding that we may lose other opportunities, other investments as well. And so I would like to know if there's been any consideration given to, in particularly, I'm speaking of the Rusty Duck site now and the investments that were made there and how the Hawthorne Suite site would impact the plans for that project. And if some of those discussions have taken place, I'd like to kind of hear what the analysis was.
Would like to take that one.
I'll take it. Sorry, we were muted, I think. This is Christine Weichert from SHRA. So as you know, the Hawthorne acquisition, the purchase and sale agreement that Jamboree Housing has on that site came together very quickly. It came together, I think now we're maybe 3 weeks ago. So we are reaching out to, and I know Jamboree is reaching out to the River District folks, owners. They're going to have community meetings out there. So while I can't tell you all of those things have happened yet, they will definitely be happening. We are still waiting to see if our application for funding is successful for that site. We are hopeful that it will be from the state, but we will definitely do a lot more outreach than we've done to date.
So the question I have with the approval of what we're doing tonight, does it lock us into the to our funds being used for the acquisition, even though we don't know the potential impacts on the project that is being considered, not being just considered, it's actually moving forward and has had substantial dollars invested in it. So will we be locked into that project by way of this vote tonight?
No, the project you're voting on, the funding source is a program we see as a program. Hawthorne is one of maybe a couple of motels we're hoping to apply for Home Key. If we are successful with the Home Key applications, we will be back to council with an entire staff report that talks about acquisition, the rehabilitation, the operations. So you'll definitely see the whole thing for approval again, and with much more detail than you know today.
Okay, and I would encourage, because it is my intent to vote for this tonight, but I would encourage you, Christine, and staff to have extensive discussions with this, that particular property owner and others that may have similar impacts. I know Mayor Pro Tem Ashby talked about the folks in the River District over on Dreher and in and around that area. I know Vice Mayor Harris has really been fighting for people that live in the area that constantly have to deal with, the impacts of homelessness issues, good and bad, because even, making the investment in housing people, but continuing to place them in already heavily impacted areas are challenging, as I'm very aware of in District 2. And so I would just, I'd like to, as Mayor Pro Tem Ashby did with the Dreher area over in the River District, also be on the record with an extensive outreach and an understanding of how we might be impacting other projects that are already funded and moving forward, and the jobs that those projects bring, and the other housing options that that they would potentially impact, because we need it all. I mean, we need the stuff that's on the table for tonight, but we need more apartments, we need more single family houses. There's a no shortage of need for housing types in our city, and particularly affordable housing types. So with that, I know there was already a second, but I will third the motion or fourth the motion that's been already established. And again, Mayor, it's nice to see you smile. Okay. And so very good. Thank you.
Motion has been thirded. Okay, Councilmember Guerra. Thank you, Alan.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity here. And first, I want to continue on the accolades to your leadership on this. I mean, this is a significant, large, multi-million-dollar housing proposal that is all-encompassing in different levels of where people are experiencing challenges. Not only for those who are currently unhoused and bearing the brunt of the three-digit weather now, but also to prevent those that are in risk of becoming homeless as well. And so I think the diversity and the scope of this is important to recognize. I want to also thank our city staff, Emily and Danielle, and everyone who has supported you on our city side on this as well. And also want to thank our SHRA staff and Lachelle, Tyrone, and Christine. I had some very passionate words about how can we really meet these deadlines, and I want to thank you and be personally and publicly about the amount of hours you guys have put in this last week to meet some very aggressive and frankly sometimes unrealistic deadlines to not leave money on the table when we need it now. So let's start there. And also today, I don't know if he's listening or working on his graduate work right now, but I want to thank Alejandro Cabrera in my office, a veteran, who today was out working with folks experiencing homelessness and ensuring that they also had water and ice at a time when they were having some challenges of where they could stay, and working with the complexity of the issue with the property owners and the neighbors adjacent to there. So I'm going to start off by saying that, our veterans spoke today very passionately about kind of their needs. And I've had a chance to meet with them. And then not just the VAC, the Veterans Affiliate Council has taken some leadership here as well in helping put together and craft a proposal for what they see are veterans experiencing a multitude of challenges, both in the spectrum of families that are close to becoming homelessness or are on the verge, to those who are already on the street and suffering those three-digit weathers. So I want to bring this point home because Julie brought this up. William Franco brought this up. I've spoken to Phil Rios also, and our local Post 67 folks at the VFW Hall on Stockton Boulevard. They put I think, a very modest proposal of $5 million with a combination of efforts, kind of like the Exodus Project and housing, working directly with veterans on veterans to support each other by looking at helping them find motel projects. And I have to believe that within this multi-million-dollar project, we can find a way to achieve their recommendation of what they believe is the most effective way, since they're dealing and helping and communicating with veterans every day. I have to believe that we can find a way to move them. I know they were considered on there. I appreciate the staff. And so first I'll ask a question here to Emily and our city staff. How can we accomplish this? What can we do? And if not, I'd provide some direction that we figure out how to fit this $5 million that they're asking for. And maybe then the number is not the number we're looking for, but the outcome of what they're trying to achieve is the important thing. So Emily, could you, someone else speak to the strategy in this?
Yeah, so happy to. And I do agree that they brought up some really good points, especially about the reserve members. And so we have talked to them a couple times with your office yesterday, definitely via email. I think a couple of important things is they are right that in sort of traditional veterans programs, oftentimes the reservists and others aren't eligible. Luckily, most of the funds that you're approving tonight, both for the COVID sheltering, for the rehousing out of the COVID sheltering, and for the eviction prevention program are not veteran specific. So those populations will be eligible just like any other population. And so working to connect them into those systems, which we're doing and they've been very receptive to, is sort of the first thing. We will also working to see if they want to become a specialized case manager within the flexible housing pool. The county's program relies on case management expertise from throughout the community. So, for example, they already have a case management team that focuses on youth, and they have some that focus on behavioral health clients. And I think it really probably makes sense to think about folding in, seeing the Veterans Collaborative is interested in becoming a case management partner in that. So those are the first two things, and I do think that we can work with them to refine the ask to those things then that are outside of what I just described. So I do think they had some more unique asks that might not fit in, but most of the things you funded, actually everything you funded are contemplating funding today, would not be limited by your veteran status.
Great. Well, thank you. And I think so. So with that, I'm going to ask that we provide direction to staff to work with not only the VAC but all of the different veteran service providers to be able to have a clear connection, a very, very strategic connection. And if they don't fit in that, at least in our next funding round, because I can see that the mayor's going to be looking at how do we get more money? How do we advocate more at the state here? That we look at what we don't accomplish in this proposal with the VAC, that we immediately put it part of as our next step in achieving the issues. I mean, I think the stories that I heard of some of our youngest veterans coming back, and not just that, but the reservists and the guardists who aren't eligible for the Title X support. There's a huge gap in that, and I want to make sure that we as a city recognize that gap, given the fact that we have such a large number of guard members. So thank you, Emily, for doing that. And I hope maybe after this meeting or next week, we can provide a meeting to close that loop and make that and formalize kind of that process. Second, I want to also, on the efficiency housing, Pride Industries had put together a very good proposal to my office and the mayor's staff as well, and the city staff. And I think when we're looking at efficiency housing, we have to look at all different types of efficiency housing, and also looking not just at how cheap or how quickly it is, but the longevity. And there may be a balancing point. They've looked at how do we create actually a market product where we can do some manufacturing here for the region, if not statewide, to produce container housing that has a 30+ life cycle. So these limited dollars that we're getting now, we should figure out how to extend them as far out and how we can repurpose and reuse them. And I want to really encourage the staff to try to work with Pride Industries on that proposal of how do we look at the cost effectiveness with longevity. Because if we work on products that only have a 10-year lifespan, 10 years will go in a blink of an eye, and we'll be spending this money again. Let's figure out where is the benefit cost ratio to the alternative of the traditional affordable housing that may have 55 years, but is also multi-million dollars in construction. Next thing I wanted to bring up and support, I've met with Sacramento Act and a lot of the members of different congregations of multiple faiths who have been lifting up everyone in this time. And I want to also support their request to look at figuring out what more we can do on rental assistance here. They have been helping people directly on that, and I want to support whatever we can do more on the rental assistance. I know we've heard many folks who are falling behind on their rent, and some are working with their landlords, and our mediation program is doing what they can. But if people fall too far behind, we're going to be chasing this problem by asking for more transitional housing dollars. So I think this balance is going to be important. So Emily or Danielle, can you talk or can you talk a little bit more about the overall strategy here for rental assistance, and how can we maybe expand more? What are the areas where we can expand more?
I can speak to that. The rental assistance program that we are envisioning would really address those individuals who are at 50% AMI or below. And it would either help with rent that is in arrears, so some who have not been able to keep up, as well as rent going forward up to a maximum of $4,000. So we, as Celia mentioned, would be coming back to the council with the details of the program to get that approved so that we could move quickly to start working with those individuals as well as landlords, because we have a lot of relationships and are able to really fold this into a similar type of program that would parallel our current rental subsidy program through Section 8.
Great, thank you, Lachelle. In doing so, I'd like us to be able to support some of those who have not been eligible for some of the other federal assistance programs, who maybe haven't had any recourse. So I think if we can triage those who have been in greatest need, I hope we can work with Sacramento ACT and the other groups who've been focusing on helping with rental assistance. I know there are a lot of working families who are essential workers doing very tough, laborious jobs outside, and who haven't been able to be eligible for some of the federal assistance programs. Some of our immigrant and refugee community are in that. So if we can focus on that. Wanted to bring up the issue just on Project Room Key. I know I've heard that the Greens Hotel has been trying to participate in Project Room Key. They're off of Stockton Boulevard, and I know they have some vacancies, but if we can reconnect with them and figure out if the program works for them, I'd appreciate that. And then finally, you know, it's an item that's after all of this, but I want to also thank all of the staff at Weave and St. John's, and working with our city staff to really hustle to make something that almost seemed unrealistic, to be able to get over 60 plus people some housing through an areas of land where they never thought they could, and housing families with wraparound services that are sometimes out of their normal traditional population that they're housing, that they're really going out and saying, we're going to do more because we believe we can do more. And the fact that we're all working together, I think, is a great one. So want to thank you again, all the city staff, the mayor, and everyone for piecing this together. I want us to really try hard on this veterans piece and make sure that it doesn't get left behind. With that, thank you, and appreciate this moving forward.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Guetta, for your efforts on all this as well. Let me turn it over to Councilmember Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of things specifically. I think my colleagues have kind of taken care of the big picture. I know this has always been a desire of this council to move forward. It's nice to finally have the resources, and I know, Mayor, your abilities to raise money have been very helpful and critical in helping us to reach these goals. So a couple things. One is, and I'm not sure, I don't know if this is Danielle or Emily, can you go back to the funding piece? Slide you did.
You're asking me to pull the slide back up? Yeah, let me share it again. A second. Not this one, right? Which?
I don't see the sharing the screen button. Kind of.
Oh,
here we
sorry.
are. Here.
There I am.
Okay.
Is it?
Well, so I think there.
This one?
Go back one. We'll start with that. So the Broadway court. Okay. Not on this. The one.
This one.
This one. So we have existing projects with gaps, Broadway, Alhambra Navigation Center. I'm assuming that's the WX Corridor Shelter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So obviously we have some challenges that we're working through with the federal government and Caltrans, but I expect that those will get straightened out. So I just want to, and I know I've gotten like verbal assurances. We put a lot of effort into this. We spent a fair amount of money. Is the contract, which contract ends 2022?
What I was trying to indicate here is that currently you have funding for 2 years of operations for both Broadway and Meadowview. And so the expectation is that those, depending on when they open, I know the Broadway one's a little bit less known, is that there will be a funding need when the first 2 years of funds are expended, and I estimate it to be sometime in 2022 for both of them.
Okay, I understand. So at this point, I know a few weeks ago, we did the construction dollars, and we have at least 2 years of operations basically in the bank. And I think that's monies that the mayor has raised privately. Is that correct?
I believe
Yeah.
so, but Lachelle might have more to say because, yeah.
Okay. All right. So great. So I just want to make sure, because we have a lot of people in the neighborhood who are, constantly asking, they're anxious to get this going. We know from just anecdotally driving down the WX corridor or underneath the freeway going up Highway 80, that problem has gotten much more challenging. And those are folks we need to get into some kind of shelter. So thank you for that. That kind of leads me into the next question. And this is something we talked about during the briefing, but really get a good understanding. And I'm not sure, you didn't go into a lot of detail, but on the funding gaps, the 7.6 million, is that if we wanted to keep I'm not sure what that signifies. Is that keeping the entire program open as we go forward? What does that mean?
Yeah, the chart has a little bit more detail, but effectively it's one for the 3 that are annual contracts, the scattered site shelter, Meadowview, and Broadway. It would represent 1 additional year once those contracts end. For the room key, that would be a one-time expense should the community wish to keep some of those motels open due to the course of the pandemic. So it's effectively 1 year of operations for these 3 programs beyond their current operational budget.
Okay, so that's just these programs, but it doesn't cover a comprehensive list of programming that we're looking at. I mean, I understand that there will, hopefully be more federal funding, hopefully be more state funding. We'll continue to go out on the private sector. But what I'd love to see, and again, we talked about this, is kind of, there's a lot of one-time funding in here. These are all things we need to do. They're probably all things that we need to figure out how to continue. But what does that look like in 2021 and 2022 as we go forward? So if that's something that you guys could work up, doesn't have to be today or tomorrow. I mean, I think this is the right thing to do in moving forward like this, but understanding what the nut is going to be as we go down the road, I think is going to be incredibly important. Okay. I have one thing, and this is, so thanks, you can take that down. I just think it's important that we look past $63 million worth of more or less one-time funding, a lot of it. So see what we can count on and what we have to do about that. I have a question. This is, or a request or direction for SHRA on the ESG homeless prevention program. And I know that I'd love for there to be a community process to really develop written guidelines and policies for the program so that when you come back, and I think you're coming back on the 22nd of September, that we've talked to kind of the stakeholders in the community about this and gotten their input. And we can come back with kind of written policies about how we're helping people or who we're helping. I think that you've heard, and we all understand, 1,000 people may not be nearly enough, but how we do priorities within that, who gets money first, and how we go forward, I think is going to be really important. So if I could add that, I think it was Ms. Ashby, if I can add that into the motion as a friendly amendment as direction, that would be great.
Jay, just summarize it one more time. I heard most of it there, but like a report back on the 1,000.
It's basically working with the community of stakeholders in this to develop policies and program guidelines. Those are all required by ESG anyway, but that SHRA work with the community in developing those and bringing those back on the 22nd of September.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's great. Do I keep my second? I think that was Vice Mayor Harris. You're on mute, Jeff.
Yeah, I think I read his lips. It was yes, absolutely. He's still on mute. Anyway.
Well, Vice Mayor Harris is next, so he can.
Yeah, so I'm done. I just want to say thank you. I know this has been a tremendous amount of work for everyone here. This is incredibly comprehensive. We've sat in, it was great to be down at, in Meadowview yesterday at the shelter. It's really quite a structure, and I think it will do well. I look forward to opening Broadway WX as well. But as I said, this is, if we have to do this, we have no choice when we think of our moral responsibility and our financial responsibilities to the future of the city. We have to get after this, and it's wonderful to finally have some resources to be able to do that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Harris, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Chenier.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It's comforting to know that Jay can read my lips. In fact, I did say, yes, I accept the amendments to the motion. You know, the mayor the other day at the River District meeting, and he's brought this up before, but he said that being homeless is not a human right. It's a pretty bold statement, but at some point as the larger community, we have to realize that, you know, we're having some real degradation in our community because of the extent of homelessness. And we are at the point right now where we really have to attack this head on. It's ironic, I think, that it took a pandemic to bring us a tremendous amount of federal and state resource to affect the projects that we were already working very hard on and struggling every year to get that extra million. And as Jay said, Daryl has been relentless in bringing resources to the program. But here we are. We finally have resources to do a tremendous amount of work. And I would like staff to know that it does not go unnoticed that they have worked tirelessly for the last 5 months since the outset of the pandemic to understand what the federal monies coming in were, what they were useful for, how they could be applied in building programs in a very short period of time. So to SHRA and everybody who's worked on this project, to Emily, you know, you guys have done a tremendous job. And I want you to understand that I really believe the council knows how much effort you've put into this. It's been very difficult. I kind of wish Councilmember Warren had made those comments the other day when we were discussing the Hawthorne Suites, but that brings me to a point that I'd like to make. If you intend to house the homeless in any numbers, in any area, the first perception that you will come up against is that it will destroy property values, that it could degrade projects in the area, that it will cause stress to the neighborhood. It could, you know, we've all been up against that, but now we have resources, and I think finally we're at a juncture where we can actually show people that we can house the homeless and create positive change in the city of Sacramento. But there's, you know, I would say very respectfully to staff, there's a piece missing from this really diverse program that you've brought to us, and one that I addressed the other day when we were talking about the Hawthorne Suites. Look, let's be honest, we're looking at putting $60 million into preventing homelessness and addressing homelessness and housing the homeless. That's a huge investment, but we are definitely falling short in addressing and mitigating the impacts of homelessness. And if we don't do that, if we run Hawthorne Suites in a way that has impacts on the River District, we're going to lose this battle. And nobody will ever want the homeless housed near them. What we need to do is encourage our constituents to understand that once we house a homeless person, they're no longer homeless. And that's a hard mental leap for a lot of some people to get to, and certainly in the River District, where the impacts have been so severe for so many years, they can't see it. They can't see the benefits of getting people inside because every day they have to deal with the impacts of the homeless population on the street. So I would ask Lachelle and staff to come back with a certain amount of money ascribed to dealing with these impacts. In fact, I've already been talking to Luchelle a little bit about what we could do to help the River District, and Angelique brought it up in her motion about Basler and Dreyer Street, because those people are impacted more than anybody in this entire city. When you say the word disproportionate, you're talking about Basler and Dreyer. I mean, it's just not tenable what they are dealing with and living in the middle of the impacts of homelessness. It's a tough situation, as we've mentioned many times before, and if you're probably tired of hearing me talk about methamphetamines, but it's the lion's share of what leads to these impacts that we need mitigation for. So to Councilmember Hanson, I say I apologize that the Meth Sobering Center is 50 feet from the border of D3 and D4, and I understand your concerns. If you had been able to see the program that we presented to council about the Meth Sobering Center, you would have understood that sustainability is very much on the forefront of our minds, that this is a proof of concept project, hopefully will be so successful that we have to move it out of that spot and replicate it in various areas of the city, because I think it will prove very useful. To become sustainable, we have to get licensure, and we have to then be able to go for federal money. So we are definitely looking at sustainability. As far as using that money from the CARES Act, it's definitely apropos. You know, the impacts of methamphetamine use are devastating to the hospitals, and to have somebody metabolize their intoxicants in either the jail or a hospital setting is enormously costly. So indeed, this is very much a COVID impact. Additionally, people who take substances and abuse them develop comorbidities that make them more susceptible to falling prey to the COVID virus, the coronavirus, but they also become really good vectors of the disease. And so it's a preventative measure. And as Ben Avey said, you know, the anticipation of most of the scientists as we go into fall, and you can't have the separation that you can in dry, warm weather, and people get in more congregate settings, even more so will this methamphetamine sobering center prove its usefulness. So we will definitely approach all of those issues. And as you said, we will do more robust outreach in that regard. I really do appreciate very much, again, to staff, the rental assistance piece. You know, the prevention is, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that's really true about homelessness. So overall, the program that you brought before us it is really an outstanding piece of work. And I'm really proud of what you have put together, and I look forward to the results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Last final comments here. I just want to express my thank yous to all of the stakeholders and our city SHRA team that worked so hard. And I want to also thank my colleagues, the members, because your input was crucial in all of this. The process, I want to talk about the process for just a moment, because we do have real leadership when it comes to the housing issues, and with somewhat different responsibilities, and it requires really a high level of cooperation to land something like this. Because when you look at it, we were talking about a jumble of funding programs, and of course, many programs that you, members, and the community have been asking for a long time. And so to Luchelle and SHRA and your team, to Danielle and your team, to Emily and your team, to the city manager, to my colleagues, fantastic work here. Because what you did here, which is no simple thing, was to land this spreadsheet here. And this spreadsheet is $62 million worth of life-saving opportunity for thousands of Sacramentans. You know, I used to when I was in the Senate and we did budget after budget after budget, I used to joke with my staff all the time that I couldn't wait till the next version of the spreadsheet came out so that I could look at it and move the numbers around and come to the conclusion. But I always reminded them, and they reminded me, that a spreadsheet is more than numbers. For this spreadsheet represents real hope for thousands of human beings, and not all who are homeless. Not all who are homeless, many who are homeless, but many who are at risk of becoming homeless, unless we balance our strategy to both get people off the street but prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place. I've always said the problem with this issue, and the reason why there is so much frustration from among people out there, is that it may be hard to get people off the streets, but the harder part is preventing people from becoming homeless in the first place. So we have success getting hundreds or thousands off the street, but the people don't see the difference because they're replaced by a new cohort of homeless people. And I said yesterday, and I want to repeat it today, as comprehensive as this is, this does not solve the problem. For the problem has gotten worse, as we heard last week from our constituents in the River District. The problem has gotten worse because of COVID. Hopefully the state legislature will step up on eviction protection and ensure that more people do not lose their housing. But this demonstrates a commitment, this demonstrates a will. And for those who ever doubted that we could bring more money to the table and who wonder now, what are we going to do in 2022? When this funding runs out, the answer is this: we're going to get more money to continue what we know is successful. The final thing I want to say on the larger CARES package, because $15.6 million of this is CARES, is that I want the council, and I hope the community, to appreciate, maybe celebrate a little bit, the fact that we are about to land the $89 million CARES package in exactly the way we intended some months ago when we laid out and approved a framework for the various areas that we wanted to get these resources to deal with this terrible pandemic. And this is a big part of it. This is the housing pot, where we didn't have to use the full $20 million, 15.6, which means we'll have a little bit more flexibility with the other pots. Next week, hopefully, we'll be able to finish up that work here and enable the staff to continue what they have done and continue to do, and that is to get the money out the door to the people. So this is good stuff, and I'm very appreciative. Let's call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor, could I add one thing really quick? And Vice Mayor Harris, if you would add this in the second, I doubt anyone would mind, but I would love, on the rental assistance program, I would love to ask Lachelle Dozier if there's a possibility to move families with minor children, to give them a preference. If we identify families that have minor children that we would be preventing from homelessness, if we could give them a preference. Is that something we can do inside the bounds of the program you would be moving forward, Lachelle?
Yes, we could create that type of preference.
Is that okay with you, Vice Mayor Harris? Rosen.
Just one clarification, maybe. Is
Sure.
the program coming back with any information before we start dispersing funds like on the others?
Yeah, I think she already said that.
Yes.
Okay.
We will.
Then maybe we could deal with it at that time too, because I'm sure
Yeah.
there's.
That's fine. I just wanted to ask her to include it in the report back as a preference. Jeff, you were frozen, so we didn't hear what you said.
So if you can hear me now, yes, I accept the change, the amendment.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Mayor, we can roll call if you'd like.
I think we got the motion down and here we go. Let's call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris,
Might be frozen again.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Carr,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris.
He said aye last time.
I believe he did. Mayor Steinberg, we will
Aye.
confirm later.
Aye. That passes 9-0. Good work, everyone. We do have one more item, and this is related to the prior item, but it just assures that we can get the money out even more quickly. Item 19, can we do this one relatively quickly, please? Okay.
Move approval.
Second.
Second.
I have two callers on this item.
There we go.
Are we ready for our callers?
Yep.
First caller, please. May we have our first caller on item 19? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Steinberg and council members. My name is Julie Hirota, and I'm the new CEO at St. John's Program for Real Change. First, I want to thank you for your consideration as a co-applicant for the Project Home Key funding. It's really a tremendous opportunity to address additional supportive housing and aids all Sacramento districts. Both Homemade and St. John's have sent executive summaries in the online public comments for further review and letters of support. But the main purpose of my call is to compliment the incredible job in shepherding from Housing Policy Manager Ms. Danielle Foster, along with the collaborative support from Homemade and general assistance from Ms. Beth Hassett at Weave. It would really be a pleasure to work on this project with a committed team, and I ask for your resolution adoption. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
It would really be a pleasure to work on this project with the community team.
Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council. Please turn down the audio on the device that you're watching the meeting. It's your turn to address the council. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Am I speaking to the council?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Rick Eaton speaking on behalf of Sacramento Area Congregations Together. Sacramento Act strongly supports the project room key proposals for Weave and St. John's, and like others, we really applaud the hasty work and big effort that staff and the leadership of these organizations put in to make these proposals come to fruition. We've made extensive comments to all these proposals tonight already. I just want to make a couple of quick points. In addition to the obvious need for these projects, we're really excited about the use of low-cost modular and manufacturing housing alternatives. We think this is a good alternative to fit many niches that are needed for affordable housing solutions for both people, people experiencing homelessness, and we think there are populations of people for whom these solutions will work very well in the short and the midterm for housing. As envisioned in these proposals, the use of manufactured tiny homes and the mayor's tiny home initiative have several key advantages. They can be deployed in really small clusters on small sites, which really expands the number of sites that become potential sites for this kind of housing. Really opens that up. because small villages can be established, differentiation among the communities based on the needs and the desires of the residents can be achieved. So we no longer need to think in terms of sort of large one-size-fits-all shelter proposals. And finally, these villages can be established in a really equitable manner around the city, not just in low-income communities where we've tended to cite these things in the past. In addition to this, these projects show the need for a really strong programmatic component.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
Sure. To understand the need for supporting infrastructure and other supporting services to make these solutions really successful. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Mayor, I have no more callers.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Guetta had a comment. Councilmember
Yeah,
Guetta?
first, again, I think it was said, thank you for not sleeping for a number of days. Ms. Danielle Foster, you really, I think, stepped up with our service providers, both Weave and St. John's to really make this happen. I also want to thank Councilmember Hanson because today in Law and Ledge, we talked about how can we better permit and plan. And I think to make modular or manufactured housing or any of these new modern types, the faster we move on the permit and planning part of this in an urgency, in an emergency shelter, is the only way we're actually going to make these projects realistic. So I do want to thank Councilmember Hanson for working on that piece. And I know more is to come. And I think we asked for a quick turnaround to be able to make these things happen. So thanks to all the staff for that as well.
Very good. All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Let's call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby?
Yes.
Councilmember Warren?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris? I believe he's trying to log back in. Councilmember Hanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chenier?
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Councilmember Carr?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Harris? Vice Mayor Harris?
Mindy, I had some internet issues. I was just able to reconnect, so I don't know what you're asking.
We are doing roll call on item number 19. Your vote.
Okay, aye.
Thank you. And Mayor Steinberg.
Aye. Okay. We're good. That ends the formal agenda for this evening. Are there comments, 5 comments from members of the public on the agenda? Let's hear from the public.
Thank you. May I have our first caller for public comments for matters not on the agenda? Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a homeowner on Bassler Street. As Vice Mayor Harris mentioned at last week's council meeting, Bassler Street fills the homelessness 25 times more than any other. A couple months ago, 2 portable toilets were placed on the end of Bassler Street to serve the homeless population during the COVID-19 pandemic. The portable toilets are placed, however, 50 feet or less from the residential homes. All for the portable toilets for the homeless, but just not outside our homes. These portable toilets are only bringing more homeless to our streets, thus feeling the homelessness 100 times more than any other district. Because of these portable toilets, homeless encampments are being built on the street next to the portable toilets. Trash is piling up in the street, crime is occurring, and traffic is increasing. People drive to and from the portable toilets all day long, and people park on the street at night and sleep in their cars. Additionally, last week, my neighbor's car was broken into, not to mention my home a couple years back. I have contacted the Sacramento County of Public Health and proposed an alternative solution that would move the portable toilets off Bassler Street. I propose to move the portable toilets to Northgate near the bike path, next to the homeless camps where there are no residential homes. By moving the portable toilets to Northgate, They will still be within walking distance to the camps near Bath. Decrease traffic as well as minimize the traffic problem developing on our streets. Additionally, if the portable toilets are relocated, it could be a potential cost savings to the county. The service company would only have to make one stop instead of two. I hope Councilmember Harris and Councilmember Ashby, as well as the other council members, can help support this proposal and help the residents of Bachelor Street. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please.
God damn it.
Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Good evening, Mayor Steinberg and council members. My name is Brandy Boyd. I am a resident of District 1, and I am also the vice chair of your City Disability Advisory Commission. Typically, the commission meets monthly, but we have not held any meetings since early March. Our commissioners have been told that the city clerk's office is encouraging staff to extend meetings out as long as possible due to the pandemic, unless there are action items. The Disability Advisory Commission's role is to advise the City Council on compliance with state and federal disability laws, review policies, programs, and activities, including capital improvement projects, that affect individuals with disabilities. Although our commission has not met for 5 months, the city is moving forward during this pandemic without our valuable input. Myself and our Commissioner Chair, Will Kennedy, seek the City Council's support in resuming Disability Advisory Commission meetings. We also request that city staff provide a report to the Disability Advisory Commission on how individuals with disabilities are being considered during allocation of CARES Act funds and in the city's COVID-19 response overall. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hi, my name is Will Kennedy. I'm the chair of the Sacramento Disabilities Advisory Commission. And I'm calling tonight to request that our commission be allowed to meet for the first time in many months this next September on a regular meeting date. Typically, throughout the year, our commission hears from our disabled residents throughout Sacramento in regards to the needs, the issues they are facing. Specifically, we take the input from our disabled population and help inform Public Works in regards to what sort of additions, what sort of changes could be made to our city. We haven't been able to do that, though, of course, without having been able to meet. However, we desperately do want to meet via Zoom to not only hear from our disabled residents, but also hear how disabled residents have had to deal with COVID and other COVID-related issues. Also, sadly, we lost one of our fellow commissioners, Tim Haley, a few months ago. And we'd very much like to meet as a commission to not only honor Tim, but also discuss a way that we can go forward with honoring him on a yearly basis. So please, my simple request is that we allow the Sacramento Disabilities Advisory Commission to meet at its regular scheduled time in September. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Okay, this is Robert Copeland. I live in District 4, which is Steve Hanson's district. I'm part of the Sacramento Tenants Union. I would like to know why the city council is in this voter suppression when it comes to the rent control ballot measure. I mean, they try to keep it off the November 2020 elections. They even went to court. That, in my opinion, is voter suppression. That, my opinion, disqualifies them from being on the city council, except for Larry Carr and Al Warren. I mean, really, rent control will help people in Sacramento, not hurt people. City Council did so good today on items 17 and 18. Then they try to keep one that prevent homelessness off the ballot measure. I will be supporting Prop 15, 21 against Mayor Steinberg's strong measure, and also vote for rent control in Sacramento. Sacramento City Council has lost my trust. I will not vote for any one of them for any office Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next caller, please. Welcome to the meeting. You have 2 minutes to address the council.
Hello, yes, this is Lambert to the Bay and Back Cheesecakes, and I've been listening to the council meeting, and it's really a kind gesture that the city council is trying to help the homeless. That's something that is really spiritual, because if you try to help the poor and needy, you get blessed for that. Now, I also wanted to make another announcement that follows up last week. We have been approached by another manufacturer in Sacramento who wants to mass produce our cheesecakes. And that means that now we have everything produced in Sacramento, which was my goal, specifically Del Paso Heights and District 2. And now that we've accomplished that, that should motivate a lot of the city council personnel, pro tem, everyone, to really reach into the city manager's office and take a look at that submitted proposal. There are some wonderful people that I can hire immediately. And by the way, baked goods are in demand even during a pandemic if you can deliver, and we're known for delivering. And so McClellan Park is ready. We just heard from them for cold storage. It's really a fascinating guarantee, really. We actually guarantee a profit per slice. How many people guarantee anything these days? So hopefully we will be funded immediately. I mean, we're the epitome of an early win. I mean, we literally are the epitome. And also, the Better Business Bureau has just literally almost begged us to renew. I don't know if it's for fees only, but they're going to have to bring more to the table than telling us what we already know.
Thank you for your comments. Your time is complete. Will you make your final comment?
Yes, fund to the Bay and Back Cheesecakes proposal.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Mayor, I have no more speakers.
Very good. Are there council ideas and questions? Hopefully not. I mean, or please feel free. If there's nothing else to come before the city council, we've had a long but very productive meeting, members and members of the public and the staff. Thank you all very much. We are adjourned.